What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast. I'm your host, as usual. First of all, this podcast is proudly sponsored by Streets on Carson. Definitely check them out. Street foods from around the world. So, a couple things I wanted to talk about before we get to this week's guest. I've been gassing up that TV show Crashing. You know, I've been talking about it heavy. I've been watching it heavy. I really, really love the show. Okay. This past season was not the absolute strongest, but it was a building season. You had to have a building season to kind of set up more of the story. And that's what this was. And it was so fucking good. And then, you know, me and my wife are on episode 7, and episode 8 is the finale of the season. And I'm I'm gassing it up and shit like that. And someone comments on the podcast picture, and he's like, yo, dude, I heard you talking about Crashing on the intro. They fucking canceled it. And I was like, what? And I Googled it, and sure enough, they fucking canceled it. They fucking canceled it. I don't get it. It was it come out of nowhere. They canceled it. I thought it was doing real well, but, it just shows you nothing gold could stay. I'm not too happy about it, but regardless, it's a great show. And now that it's canceled, I want to just take a second to, just let people know that show's fucking good. It's definitely worth watching. It's hilarious, and it's loosely based off of a comedian's real life. And you got a whole bunch of different comedians in there. It's a fucking raunchy ass show, but I really did love it. And it's a shame that it's gone, but whatever. At least they're not going to fucking squeeze it to death and make 15 seasons of it and make it trash, just like Shameless. Anyway, the next thing we need to talk about, coming up quick, Yoga Ralph, his $5 drop-in classes at, so this one is going to be at Yoga Flow in Murraysville, March 29th at 6:30 p.m. I'll be in the house, sweating to death right next to you. Trying not to fart while I'm bending over, but I'm telling you, yoga's wild. But if you're a dude or someone that is kind of hesitant of going into the, random stereotypical, yoga class with a middle-aged woman, and a bunch of other middle-aged women, this is not that class. This is a raw-ass dude from McKeesport, born and raised, and he has the thickest Yinzer and McKeesport accent you'll ever know. It's going to be kind of getting taught by Vader from the WWE. It's going to be getting taught by a WWE superstar. I don't know. But Yoga Ralph has a different way of doing things, and I'm excited for his classes. The drop-in classes, again, March 29th, 6:30 p.m., Yoga Flow, Murraysville. Bring $5 cash money, and, come get that sweat on. But the reason everyone is here, so I talked to a very interesting guy this week. His name is Dustin Sussman. Dustin Sussman is someone who was brought to my attention by a mutual friend. They met Dustin somehow. I don't even remember how, but he texted me and he was like, "Yo, this dude got a wild ass story. Check him out, and maybe he'd be good for a guest as a podcast." And I check out his Instagram and shit like that, and I see that he directed some movie, and I click on the link, and the movie is about a comedian from the Comedy Cellar in New York, one of the local comedians there. And I start to see interviews from fucking Sarah Silverman, Dave Attell, Bill Burr, and I'm like, what? Because I've never heard of the comedian. His name's Rick Crom. I've never heard of him before, but he's I guess he's someone who's he's been there, and he's been a staple in the Comedy Cellar for forever almost. And I start looking through this dude's Instagram, and it's almost if he didn't have all these pictures to back up all this shit that he's telling me, it would be hard for me to believe, to be honest, because there's just so many crazy stories. And, you know, like I look at his Instagram and he got fucking Master P and Big Boy and, you know, Clancy Brown. And like Dustin is just a wild dude. He got a wild story, you know, grew up in Squirrel Hill, made his way over to the West Side. And he was living in LA or Hollywood, and he was working at the Château, big ass, like, you know, well-known hotel, a bunch of celebrities there and shit like that. So he got crazy stories about like just wild ass shit. You just got to listen to this episode. Listen to this episode, hit me up, give me some feedback, let me know what you like. Definitely take a second and just throw a rate and review on the podcast for me. Just fucking humor me, please. Just go over there. You know, I'm out here busting my fucking ass. And I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I'm putting in the real work. You know, let me get that 5-star. Run over that 5-star and let me get that thing. And write me a comment. Write me down something you like about this podcast, because I'd love to hear about it. Or send me an email, whatever you want to do. But without further ado, episode 61 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Dustin Sussman.
Telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast. Yeah, all crispy.
Check. Good.
Yeah.
I do have my radio voice, my podcast voice.
Your podcast voice, yeah. So I know that you. I look through your Instagram.
We're hitting it right away. We're going.
Oh yeah.
Oh, we're going. Let's do it.
I look right through your Instagram. Anytime I find someone that I think, I don't do any intros. I don't go like, hey man, tell
That's
your
what
name.
I'm talking about.
You know what I mean? Like I kind of give an intro. Like I'll do an intro post that I put before the actual episode. But like, I think it's a waste whenever I'm like, hey man, say your name, tell me what you do.
Right.
You know, it's dumb. I got that, my podcast is a blend of all my favorite podcasts. So like, I like to think I take some from Marin, take some from Bert Kreischer and Ari Shaffir. Ari Shaffir just like goes right into a podcast, Bert right into a podcast. I just feel that, it kind of just like bottlenecks it right in the beginning. So that's why I do opening segment. So I do this opening segment. It's called What's in the Cup.
What's in the cup?
You want to know what's in my cup?
Yeah, what's in your cup? Both of your cups.
Well, if I'm drinking black coffee.
Black coffee.
I would say it's like that sugar and cream will kill you.
Yeah.
That milk will kill you.
Yeah.
And then I have some lemon water, some fresh lemon water.
So anytime that people come on, I try to, if I don't hate the drink that they choose, I'll usually drink the same shit. I don't usually get lemons whenever I go to restaurants, just because
it's kind of gross, people's hands and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's just a small thing I'll try to avoid because, I mean, what's it like back there? You know, like what's it
You
really
don't know.
like?
You know
back
who
there?
cut those?
Yeah, who
You
knows?
don't know what happened.
I just sip lemon water. It is refreshing though.
Again, I was just showing you. It's like it does a lot of things. It naturally like pH balances you, and
I could use it.
your immune
I'm not the
system.
healthiest person. I need to be. I'm trying to convert a little bit. There was recently a death in the family, so
sorry to hear that.
It's all right. He was an old man, and he lived a very good life. But you know, it just makes you think. Like,
It puts it all in perspective.
how
old are you? now?
I'm 28.
I mean, man, I just turned 37.
Yeah,
It's heavy. Because, I mean, for myself, if you look at me, I mean, most people tell me I don't look my age.
yeah. I would have never guessed that you look 37.
I could probably pass for late 20s.
Yeah,
or-
28. I would have guessed you were
Right.
probably the same age.
I'm not saying that is egotistical. I'm just saying it just is like,
Yeah, it's just
I
the way
just
that-
think it's kind of obvious. But,
You're blessed.
I mean, maybe. Well, I was raised by my grandparents, so I felt like I helped take care of them towards the end of their life, and I said I was kind of gifted. This was my gift.
Yeah,
It
kind
was
of the
like-
fountain of youth.
Kind of like, yeah, exactly.
It's like the scenes in the movies whenever the soul comes out of the older and
right,
goes into
exactly.
the-
Or like Transformers when Optimus Prime died, you know,
Yeah.
and you take like the cube or whatever, you know, whatever the cube
How
is
many do
called.
they have now?
Of what? Transformers?
Probably like 12.
I don't know. Those bad ones. I was talking about the animated movie. You know, that was like the one that, because I remember when Optimus died watching that movie, man, I cried so hard.
Yeah, I love the old the animated version.
Yeah. That was definitely my jam back then.
My brother is 35, so he was kind of like the outlet of all the cool shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I wasn't like stuck on watching baby shit for my age kids. I was just like kind of forced to watch whatever he was watching. So it was X-Men, Transformers, Thundercats, all that good shit. You know what I mean?
Oh,
But so I was looking through your Instagram, and I usually whenever I have people on here, I kind of I didn't know too much about you, so I deep dive in all your social media, and I kind of gather things from that. You know, that's pretty much my
that's
whole
interesting.
secret.
Okay, cool.
I'll go through and I'll see that I found out you were Jewish because your first post was a Jewish Chris Mullen.
Yep.
And I'm not a basketball fan, so I don't know who that is, but you look pretty good at it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of put up. I guess I'll tell you. I don't know. I lived in Brooklyn for a little bit.
Okay.
I moved there. I guess I was living there like. I think I first moved there maybe like 6-7 years ago. I'd been living in LA for a while, but I'd moved to Bushwick. It just had become sort of gentrified. Like it wasn't there yet. I was told people my roommate moved out within the first couple months of me living there.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I was like, well, maybe I want to live with a girl. I've like living with fucking dudes my whole life. I was like, maybe I want to try a girl. Have a clean bathroom, whatever. And I invited, I had two girls via Craigslist came over as the sun was coming down. They both said they wanted the apartment. When they left to go back to the train when the sun was down, they said, we don't want the apartment.
Oh, yeah.
That happened 2 times in a row. Anyway, so back then when I first moved there, there still was a little, a little more character to the neighborhood. And I remember that it was like that nice first spring day out there. I was by myself, just shooting around.
Yeah.
And, I'm definitely like hipstered up. Anyway, I end up playing this basketball game. I just get called over by these two, like, I'm not really, these are some around the way, street dudes. Experienced dudes. And it was, they're on the opposite side of the court, 5 of them. And I remember they were just like, yo, man, come here. And I was like, all right. I just walk up. They didn't even ask me to play. They just started playing basketball.
And you were obligated to play.
I was obligated to play.
Yeah.
So we started playing. It's 3-on-3. And I'm not making this. I'm sending picks. I'm doing all this. They won't even pass me the basketball. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to do everything I can. So our team goes down. I'm really not making this up. As we went down like 11-2 or something like that. We were playing to 16. And I go, fuck this. Like, I'm just going to start shooting. And my thing is like mid-range. If I'm like worried about something, I just try to go mid-range.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm left-handed. I'm very streaky. I just didn't miss. I just kept shooting.
Oh, yeah, you did well.
They're switching me up on defense. You know how egotistical people are in New York about basketball. They're getting pissed, The game's on the line. I think it was 15-14, We're playing by ones and twos.
Oh, you just came back.
We came back.
Wow.
I got us back, basically. And then the dudes on my team start passing me the ball because they're pumped because I'm making.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the one dude was like D'ing me up so hard on the game-winning point. Anyway, I made the game-winning 3-pointer. It was a
No
2-pointer.
way.
So when he came down, literally when I made the shot in his face, he turned to all 5 of those dudes and he goes, this Larry Bird of the Hood.
Oh, my God.
And when he said in my head, I was like, yeah! I was like, yes! It was like the greatest basketball moment in the history of my life. But when he said it to me as a joke, and I was like, how about the Jewish Chris Mullen?
Yeah.
Because I'm left-handed and whatever. Because everybody always says, Larry Bird's like the stereotype, like white basketball
Absolutely.
player. So that's like the origin of that.
Do you have a basketball background?
Kind of. Growing up in Squirrel Hill, funny sidebar to that. From then on in, I'd be on like my stoop, and they'd yell for me like at the court, like, Larry, you playing basketball? I'm like, all right, man, I'll be over or whatever. But growing up in Squirrel Hill, just like all my friends, like even my friends who got married here, every time I would come back over the years, they all want to play basketball before their weddings in the morning at the JCC. It's so funny.
I wanted to play golf.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's way more leisurely.
Yeah, I've gotten to golf late. I was never into it growing up whatsoever, but I'd say like 2.5 years ago, I went out and I played, and I become obsessed. I've been that's where I do all my free shit.
I was just gonna say the term I was gonna say is upset, like because I have a lot of friends who do it. And you just get, it's a really it's fun.
Once you're able to somewhat accurately hit a ball where you could kind of keep on the course and not lose one every stroke.
Yeah.
That's whenever you get into the groove and you're man, this is fucking nice.
I used to love to go. But Muay Thai for me was like
that was your outlet?
Addicted to that.
So Squirrel Hill, you grew up. Is that where you were born and raised?
So I was born and raised. Yeah, I got pretty, my roots go pretty strong in Pittsburgh. I went to Allderdice High School. My grandparents went to Allderdice. My dad went to Allderdice.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I grew up in the same house as, my dad did.
Okay.
But I was raised by my grandparents. My dad died when I was a baby.
I'm sorry.
In a car accident, all good. And then my mom kind of wasn't around.
Yeah.
Kind of in and out. I have a half brother, Dan, who's old, and he's like 8-9 years older than me.
Okay.
And but most of the time I was with my grandparents there.
So what did you do in high school and shit? Were you playing sports, or were you ever into like?
Kind of. I was like, I was definitely the guy. The one thing I can say about who I really was in high school was things were still cliquey back then. You know what I mean? Especially being a white, being the dude from Squirrel Hill. But the thing is, my family life and other parts of my life were not. I was the only Squirrel Hill kid that had family in the North Side, and like, you know what I mean? Like, I just was kind of different in that respect from your sort of like stereotypical Jewish kid from Squirrel Hill. My dad was the same way,
Yeah.
Like my dad worked for U.S. Steel. It just wasn't. Okay. I'm not saying everybody's a doctor or a lawyer in Squirrel Hill. It's just it's a little bit different. But so. Yeah, for myself, I think like especially when I got to high school, I remember in 9th grade with everybody being so cliquey, I just was like, this is stupid. I was kind of a nerd, but I was also cool with the cool kids, but I was also cool with like
you moved around. You were friends with all.
Yeah, exactly. Like again, I was by no means, a tough guy. I also moved to Miami briefly for a few months.
Okay.
I went to this school. You'll probably appreciate. Everybody likes the story, but I moved to this. Moved in with my cousins briefly because I did have problems like living with my grandparents. Like my upbringing was like. Kind of crazy with my mom and, all this shit, which I'm very open about, whatever. But so I moved to Miami briefly, and I was going to this school, and I happened to befriend this kid whose dad was Barry Gibb from the Bee Gees.
Really?
Yeah. Michael, shout out to Michael Gibb if you're listening. Really nice guy.
Michael Gibb,
really good dude. And this is the first time I had never gotten really drunk in my life. I think I was like 15 at the time.
This was in Miami?
This was in Miami,
okay.
Yeah. 11th grade. I was young for my age. I was like basically kind of a year younger than my friends. But
okay.
Let's go to Miami. We went to Epcot Center. I probably shouldn't even say this, but I'm going to say it. But him and a bunch of the kids we were with at Epcot all ate mushrooms.
Oh, yeah.
And for me at the time, I was like, well, I don't know. I was like, I'll just drink. And we were like, drinking and stuff. So
okay, so you were drunk. You didn't eat no mushrooms.
I didn't eat any mushrooms.
All right.
But then we went back to his dad's house, just me and Mike. He was like, you can sleep over, Do you know the room I slept in?
The trophy room.
No. His godfather is Michael Jackson.
What?
His godfather is Michael Jackson.
What was the room like?
I can't, it's kind of, I can't really remember because I was so drunk. Because I just remember, so basically what happened was we go back to his house, we like raided his dad's liquor cabinet. He passed out so hard that I like couldn't really wake him up. He was alive, but I couldn't wake him up. So I just went in that room. I passed out the figment of your imagination doll. That's like, it's like a thing at Epcot Center.
Yeah, yeah.
I bought one of those dolls and that was like my pillow because I couldn't find a pillow. I remember all these things. So in the morning, I try to go wake Michael up, and he won't wake up. Like he's alive.
Yeah,
he's just passed the fuck out.
Yeah, he's fucked up.
So I'm like, what am I gonna do in this whole huge house? So I go downstairs and I go into the kitchen, and in the kitchen is Barry Gibb in a robe making breakfast.
Jesus.
And I've always been I've been a music nerd my whole life. Just because my brother. That's when my brother. He never had money. I always said like for my bar mitzvah and stuff, he gave me like his old tapes.
Oh, okay.
Pink Floyd T-shirts and
shit
like
yeah.
that. So anyway, I go in there. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm Mike's friend from the school and blah, blah, blah.
What did he say?
He was so cool, man. He was like, you want some breakfast or whatever? I was like, hell yeah. He fed me Fruity Pebbles because I wanted some Fruity Pebbles.
Wow.
And we talked about music. And even at the time, I knew like he had produced stuff for Barbra Streisand and, work with Stevie Wonder. We started talking about all these things. He started singing stuff. Like it was like because we started talking about music. I was like, did that really happen?
Yeah, that's insane.
So then I had to call my aunt to come pick me up. And as I'm waiting for her to pick me up inside the crib right before the elevator, they had a pack of dogs. They had like a bunch of little dogs.
Yeah.
Like 5 or 6 dogs. And the head one was like a little Pomeranian.
He had an elevator in the house?
No elevator, but a big crib. Like all the brothers kind of, I think, like lived next door to each other.
Okay, yeah.
It definitely was like the biggest house. It was like it kind of reminded me of Tony Montana's house a little bit. Not the not like the front of Tony's house, like as in like when you're not the red when he's going up the staircase. It's not like that. But the surroundings of the house. The way,
yeah, like the feel of it.
Exactly, that Miami feel to it. So the head Pomeranian, I remember it was
like Pomeranian.
I'm telling you, because when I looked at him, it was like a movie where I was like,
Alpha Palm.
It was an Alpha Palm. I swear to God, because it was like they all followed him around. Shit, it could have been a chick. And I remember it was like a movie because he was staring at me, and I was like, "What's up, buddy?" And it just lunged at me.
Oh my
and it
God.
bit through my jeans into my calf and broke through my skin. And just like out of instinct, I turned. And I just basically punted Barry Gibb's dog, like straight up. And I just like ran into the elevator, hit the button, and just ran out to my aunt to come pick me up.
I thought you just said that they didn't have an elevator.
I mean, I'm sorry, garage.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry. out into the garage and just like ran out of Barry Gibb's house. But yeah, so that's my story of unfortunately
you kicked
having to
his fucking dog.
kick Barry Gibb's dog.
That just reminds me of remember that comedy skit? I don't know. My brother had to kick my dog. Lady come to my house and she kicked my dog. I think it was a Jerky Boys skit.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Remember
I
the
love
Jerky Boys?
Jerky Boys, man.
Yeah, so good.
My uncle still to this day, he's like in his 60s, and he will come up to me, like he'll call me, and I'll be like coming down to visit him or something, right? When I lived in California, he'll be like, "Shoot me a time." Like he still says that to this day.
I loved all those back in the day. Those and like Adam Sandler's "What the Hell Happened to Me."
Oh my God,
all that good shit,
dude. They're all gonna laugh at you.
Were you always into like comedy type shit?
Yeah, my whole life. Yeah. I was into comedy. It's just more. I was. If you ask, like, I'm 37, and this sounds so stupid, but even some of my, some of my oldest best friends, they will joke and be like, "You're the original hipster," in terms of knowing me, of how I was in high school, the things I was into, even in middle school, whatever. Like if even going out in high school, we go to bars. I'd force my friends to go to Blockbuster so I could rent 3 movies so I could stay up.
Oh yeah.
All night, to watch movies and shit like that.
For sure.
Same thing I was talking about with my brother. It sounds weird, especially with my mom and him, him not having money, my mom getting evicted all the time. It's just like music. People don't remember what it was like without YouTube. It like took work to be into something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I usually ask people, anyone that's older than me, I feel like that I was the cutoff age for like not having YouTube readily available.
Hell yeah.
Because I remember my brother was always real big into like, downloading and torrenting shit. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got exposed to that a little bit earlier, but there was no YouTube where you can just go online. You would have to wait through LimeWire, giving your computer like SARS, and it's like you wait for 4 hours to get 10% done, and you have to like preview the track and make sure it sounds okay. But I remember it was such a hassle. So I usually will ask people like how they got exposed to shit. Like there was a dude that came on here before, and I was like, he's a rapper. He's big in like hip hop. His name's B White. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not, but he didn't have YouTube. So I was like, how do people get exposed to the music they like back then? And he's just talking about going to buy CDs and going to the music stores and shit like that. That's what you did?
Yeah. I definitely vividly remember in Squirrel Hill. Shout out to Jerry's Records in Squirrel Hill, which is like still.
I just ate breakfast in Squirrel Hill this morning at Pamela's.
Oh hell yeah!
It was that place is. I think it's. I feel like it's overrated.
What's funny is when you. When you started talking about being a little bit unhealthy, I almost said, when I come back, the times. So basically, I just moved back here. Is like the thing, and I've lived in New York and LA for the last like 50, off and on. Basically, since I left here when I was like 19 years old. Yeah, and I always kind of laugh because every time I come home to visit, after that week, I feel like it takes me like an extra week when I get home to like process all the shit out of my body.
Oh, for sure.
It's all like the cheese and dough and fucking beer and I'm not knocking all any of that.
No,
it's
no,
just
no,
that,
for sure.
It's definitely one of those things that just being here, it's tough. It's definitely tough.
What was your game plan in high school? Like, what were you going to like? What was your idea of going to school?
It's so funny looking back on that. Not to be like too deep about it, but there's a lot of pressure in life. You know what I mean? It's like I always say, there's two. I've been writing about this for a long time. I'm basically trying to write a show based in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Something authentic, which I have been writing based around my life,
Yeah, for sure.
And part of it has to do with one of my best friends who committed suicide.
Oh, really?
And he was 27. It was very ironic. It was like he was part, it's like the whole 27 club thing, but he was also valedictorian in my high school.
Oh, really?
Got straight A's. He was also my cousin through marriage. He was basically my cousin.
Yeah.
So it's not only that we sleep over growing up. I see him on vacation, and so it's like a different thing. But he went to medical school, all this shit. I was the black sheep in a lot of respects. You know what I mean, with my mom and all that baggage that came with it. It's like when he died personally, I was like, I thought this was supposed to be me. My dad died young. I was, personally, I felt that was what was going to happen to me. You know?
For sure.
So I think like with Michael when he passed, it was so crazy to me because I look back on what you were asking about. The high school thing is like with my grandmother, she was just pressuring me to go to college
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Which as I'm saying this right now, people listening, probably like 80% of people are like, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like,
Absolutely,
I
dude.
didn't want to make this decision, but because, a lot of the time it's your parents love you, but they want you to be at a level so they can speak to other people about you at that level.
Yeah.
Like my homie who I was staying with for a while, like he's worked on tons of shit. If I start telling like Jurassic 5 and all this, like DJ Shadow, all this stuff, you'd be like, word? But all she hears is he edits trailers for Netflix, and that's like enough to her to go to her,
Her friends,
girls on the
like,
phone.
peacock
Right.
about
So
them.
exactly. And that's a lot of what life is, and that's kind of like a lot of what to me, the bullshit of life is, the
Yeah.
fantasy of life that isn't
That's
real.
the norm. It's
Right.
like everyone's shepherd. Like we're just like a bunch of sheep, and they shepherd us to be into this small, like, put the blinders on us, go to school, go to college,
Eat
get
the
married,
bush.
have a kid.
Right.
And
We don't need no education. It's
Yeah.
like that. So for me, that was a lot of.
You had that same mentality back in high school and shit. You were like, I'm not going to college.
Well, no. I knew I didn't want to go, but I was pressured. So I did go to WVU for like
Okay.
3 semesters.
Yeah.
And basically ran out of it's so ironic. It's like that I ended up going to school because I was I felt pressured to go. To everybody who's like, okay, Dustin's going to college just with everybody else, so I
Yeah.
don't look like an idiot.
Absolutely.
And then I go, and basically by my 3rd semester, like, well, you owe us $9,000. I'm like, well, I don't have $9,000.
Yeah.
My grandma, all sort of my family life at that time too was sort of like deteriorating. So I had no money, and I'm in debt. Right
It's
when
crazy.
I'm 18.
Anytime people talk on here, it's like we always go over the fact that it's insane that they want you to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life while you're 16. And, every year you're changing the things that you like, the people you hang out with. And
You don't even know who you are yet.
Exactly.
I'm not. Look, I've told somebody. I've told this story a few times, and like, I've made movies. I made a movie about a gay comic. I'm not here to. Whatever. I'm not a judgmental person at all. But I was on the train in New York once, and she must have been like, she was not over 21. You know what I mean? Well, she was transitioning into a guy.
Okay.
And it was in the summer, had a tank top on, and I could see that she had just had her breasts removed.
Yeah.
She had acne all over her back because obviously, she was taking testosterone and all that.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do. You know what I mean? One of my cousins is actually transitioning right now.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. Look, if it's something, your whole life and, you know who you are, like, go for it. But I don't know, in my heart at times, I'm like, you're so young. Like, I think back on shitty tattoos I was going to get when I was like 21, being like, and I know those aren't the same. It doesn't sound like the same thing, but it's just more like, you just don't know who you are yet. I just feel like I feel like younger generations now just aren't really settling in themselves a little bit. It just feels like
That's interesting to think about.
do you know what I'm
sure.
saying?
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything derogatory towards it. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, looking back on it for myself, it's like,
You could never think how you would be 100% like in any choice that you made.
totally. I mean, look, part of my life up to this point too, the reason why I feel like even though I got my ass kicked the last year or so, which we can talk a little bit about.
Yeah.
As far as like the entertainment industry goes, I feel like part of it I'm stronger than I've ever been, because like the trials and tribulations, my favorite fighters are ones, Look, I love Floyd Mayweather for the sweet science of boxing, but dude, I don't know who he is as a man, because I've never seen him come back from a loss.
Yeah, for sure. You got to be able to like get knocked down and then come back.
Right.
Like
those are my favorite. Like GSP, it's like that's why GSP is the GOAT. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like seeing how
for
you
sure.
come back from that is like. That really speaks to something.
I was
So,
really hoping that Cody Garbrandt was going to win last night.
man,
but,
my boys, we were on a group text, even though
Yeah,
I
it's
had
a
to work, and
shame.
these assholes are texting me while I'm working.
It's really a shame. I
felt bad for him though, man.
He's a cool dude always. Like I used to make clothes like 4 years ago, and he trained up at Pittsburgh Fight Club.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he like wore my clothes and shit like that. So I always had like some sort of like an extra level of a connection with it. I always wanted to see him do good, and like he came out and like beat the fuck out of a couple people, and made light work of Dominic Cruz, and you're just like, man, this dude's gonna be a fucking animal. And then he's on a three fight loss now.
It's tough, man.
And they were big losses too, and he got fucking rocked last night.
Well, he said last night he got headbutted was like the big thing, but
he like pointed at it, but like, come on now, shit happens. Like, I get it.
I just think, look, it's. I hate
that
even having
headbutt.
the
Don't do nothing compared to that fucking hook that
right
he just
hand.
took.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it ain't gonna.
It was definitely insane.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like a. I mean, part of it could be, the chin now, but then part of it could just be coaching too.
Yeah,
know?
for
It's
sure.
like,
That's
I hate
what,
to say this, but you're getting caught. You just got caught with the same punch.
I think that's what
Three
Rogan
fights in a
said, or someone said that. They were like, I wonder of maybe you're thinking about who he surrounds himself with might
Right.
need to be changed up. But I mean, look at TJ Dillashaw. He got out of there and he's fucking an animal.
Alpha male obviously seemed toxic to him and going to bang, going over to Ludwig.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, like, you think about it, if you're trying to, like, get deeper with it and analyze it a little bit more, if you look at, like, Uriah Faber, he was, like, a big deal, but he was never, like, able to get to that,
Well, there just
that
weren't
elite
adjustments.
level.
That's what we're talking. Even the GSP thing we just talked about.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you led into Cody about it. Is
Yeah.
that it's the adjustments you make. It's
absolutely.
I even had this, recently with this new thing that I'm, working on with Malcolm and some other, Kill Tony guys.
Yeah.
I'm trying to learn from the mistakes I made
Well, you have to. Like, that's
making, from the past.
coming full circle. You have to be able to do that, and I think that's why people get stronger. It's like once you do things your way and you fuck it up, and you know that that's not the way to do it, but you come across all this shit along the way. You already are seeing all this negative shit. If you just like get there immediately, just by sheer luck on the first try, you're not going to see any of this fucked
And
up
I
shit.
guess that's what I'm getting at with the, and that's what I was talking about with that girl on
Yeah.
the train. And I know I've seemed like that I'm defensive because we live in a society now that
You have to be like you have to explain everything that you say because
right,
people
right.
could definitely take it differently.
which is is what it. I always say, why can't we live like the movie Casino, where everybody's just so openly racist that it just totally nullifies the whole fucking thing? It's so funny because that's so much of how my life is. I have so many Sicilians in my life; it's hilarious.
Yeah.
So you could say anything about Jewish people and it would not bother me. But I feel like that makes me stronger at the end of the day, that we all have thick skin. And
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
has to be.
But yeah, with that girl, I just remember like looking at her and I just go, like, it just like settle in yourself. Like be, just like don't, I don't know. It's just
It's a
tough.
slippery slope for sure
Totally.
because it's like, if people are that passionate about that belief and they're already
Right.
doing that, then they obviously like are thinking that heavy into it. But I do see what you're saying. Like there's people that change the whole way that their lives are in 5-6 years. I'm completely different than I was, 5 years ago. I like
You'd be
different
making the
things.
same decision. I mean,
Yeah, who knows, dude? That's I've never thought about it.
Yeah.
But that's
I
a good
think
way
about-
to.
I mean, look, the thing that we were talking about before, I'm so sorry to cut you off, is
No. I'm the
thing-
worst at that, so I'm gonna
No,
just
it's
get
all
that right
good.
out of here.
Please,
I'm
I talk
terrible
so
at
much,
it.
So, the thing for me is I think about this a lot, and it was sort of what I was getting at a little bit earlier, which is a little bit more of a down the rabbit hole kind of trippy type thing. Is I do think about like reality. Really what reality is. The
Yeah.
fantasies that we live compared to really what matters. I worked in the corporate. I worked for Viacom for 8 years. This is like one of my favorite stories of all time.
Yeah.
Of working there. I was living in New York. I was working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. On
All the time.
all the like that real the cliche, just like insane. And my boss at the time was just driving me fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And my boy, shout out to Eric Evac, my boy, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai guy, graphic designer, artist. He's a wild dude. But my first day of work, he's all tattooed up from Virginia. Went to middle school and high school with Allen Iverson. He was in Allen Iverson's art classes his whole life. And Eric's a rough dude. And I remember the first day of work, he rolled up to me because I'm a goofy hipster dude with my fedora, and he was like, "Yo, man, can I take your picture?" And I was like, "Yeah." And as he's taking my picture, I was like, "Why do you want to take my picture, man?" He was like, "My girlfriend hates hipsters, and she thinks I'm one, so I want to take a picture of a real one." I was like, "Man, what the fuck?" And then a couple days later, he came over, and he just, he's had a crazy life, so he started talking to me more. But like, I probably even had an even crazier life than him, so we kind of bonded instantly, So. Whatever, a couple years later, I was outside of work one day and I was fucking pissed over some shit with my boss.
Yeah.
And this seems really simple at first when I tell this story, but to me at the time it was so profound. I was like, I'm bitching to him. He's like, "What's the problem?" I was like, blah, 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 and Mac, blah, just bitching about my boss.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Calm down." He goes, "Dude, let me just say one thing to you." He goes, "If we were in the jungle right now, his shit would be our shit."
Yeah.
And when he said that to me, all of the anger went out of my body. And the reason why is because all he was telling me in that moment, he goes, what is in that building is not reality.
Yeah.
My boss was able to thrive in that, what I consider the corporate structure is an
Wow.
alternate. It is an alternate reality.
That's crazy.
His whole job my other boss said this to me years ago. It was the man. Like, if we'd work Comic-Con or something like that and we needed to get some work done, because you're working these crazy hours and you got to get all this content up, he would, like, pitch in and help us on shit, writing or whatever. My other boss would never do that. He was, like, a legacy at Viacom and stuff, so he was, like, he was a VP, in his early 30s. He would never touch that. And when I said that to my old boss, I was like, yeah, I hate that about him. He goes, no, you don't understand. From on high, if he has to do that, he's not doing his job right.
Yeah.
That is not reality to me. So it's the reason why I eventually quit my job and, where I kind of how, what I've been doing, moved out of my apartment to finish my film and all these things. That's really where my focus has sort of been of really what reality was. And as much as I look back and the trials and tribulations I've been through and, you have healthcare and all these things, you do have, a little bit of a safety net being there. It wasn't real, And I know that sounds kind of hokey and shit, but
no, that's incredible.
It just had such a profound effect on me. And even now being back in Pittsburgh, where I even get emotional thinking about it, my boy said this to me the other day. I went to my boy's, like, his kid had her first birthday.
Yeah.
And my boy, shout out to Adam Hecht, my boy. Right as I was leaving, I was saying goodbye. I was like, all right, Dust, peace. But right as I was leaving, I was about to say goodbye, and he looked at me for a second. He was like, you all right? Like, for real? Like, you okay? It was more that Pittsburgh, like, everybody's like, you need some? Holler at me. That would never happen in Los Angeles. That would never, ever, ever in a like, the way that he did that to me, anyway, it really touched me. Yeah, exactly.
Now, how do you get from being in Squirrel Hill, going to high school in Alderdice, to making these moves? Like you said, where was Viacom at? In New York?
So that was in New York, and I worked in LA as well.
When were you doing that? How old? Is that right out of high school?
Well, I should probably, I would say my origin story, what I consider my real, like, origin story, if I was, like, writing a comic book or whatever the fuck, would be, so I went to WVU, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
I had to drop out of
What were you
college.
going to school for?
I was in theater.
Okay.
And I did journalism and writing.
Were you doing theater and shit in high school, like in plays and everything?
Yeah. But also, too, I was a big video dude. I always had video camera. The only thing, shout out to my mom on that tip, the only thing I ever asked for, dude, my mom, one time I asked my mom for a VCR. They were her and my mom's second husband were living in a motel behind a Big Boys out in Monroeville.
Yeah.
And, dude, they straight up handed me a VCR.
A motel VCR?
No, but it was like no box, no nothing. But
It's
I was
all right.
like, I'll take the VCR.
Yeah.
She got the VCR. I can't talk shit.
Yeah.
But
fell off a truck.
I know. So anyway,
you were always walking around with a camera.
I always had a video camera. And my boy Mike, I was telling you about, we were always making movies and stuff.
Yeah, we
like
made
that.
movies when we were younger and shit like that. I was not the one with the camera. My buddy Chris Guy was definitely the guy with the camera. Like, we made them little stop animation ones with, like,
We used to do the disappear, reappear trick all the time.
Yeah. I remember we had a history teacher, and I was in 5th grade. His name was Mr. Della Lucia, and we used to have to do these, like, current events where we'd have to write, like, one page write up about a current event or some shit. And I remember we asked him the one time, we were like, hey, can we, like, make a movie as the write up? And he was like, yeah, if you make a movie, that's fine. So I remember we wrote up something about, like, it was like something about a terrorist, or I can't remember what the article was, but we have a video of me where, like, dude had a paintball gun. I had, like, this turban on, and he was just shooting me with a paintball gun, and he was like, yeah, definitely can't do this no more.
Oh my God, that's so
But
funny.
the videos and shit like that, you always knew, like, the kids that were into the videos and, like, the creative ones, and that's one thing I ever did.
Yeah, we used to make our thing too. Is we were really big in martial arts when we were young. So it was
So you started into that early,
dude. Mike, for his he had a project in like 6th grade. I mean, he like shout out. I mean, Mike was like incredible in that way. I mean, he made a full movie, and we'd use the Enter the Dragon soundtrack. But it was like we went down to Miami on vacation. We were all down there as kids on vacation, and we shot at the Fontainebleau Hotel. With us, like, walking through, like, under, like, the rock, through the rock and stuff. I mean, we're little kids, you know.
But
we did full fight scenes and stuff like that. Some stuff at the JCC,
wow. That's insane.
But so I was gonna say that. Right, I'll get into the origin story, but the one thing I was gonna say is even as a kid, because you ask like how the moves happen. Even as a young kid, like being raised by my grandparents, I even flew at a really young age by myself, like. Because flying was different back in the day, especially in like the early 90s. So I can just tell you that, like, I don't know. I mean, part of it too was like kind of the gift of gab and just whatever.
Being able to, like, be places and connect with people.
And being on my own. I think that's really what it was. And anyway, so when I went to California for the first time in high school, I think I was in 11th grade at the time. I was flying out there and I'm walking on the plane. And as I'm walking on the plane, there's a guy with his hand on his face asleep in first class, and it was Robert Downey Jr. So I go sit down, and I was reading Ordinary People. I can still like feel the moment at the time because I remember it so vividly. I was reading Ordinary People. My boy made me a mix, and I was listening to fucking Rosa Parks by Outkast just came out.
Really?
And I was listening to the song. I swear to God, on that flight, I must have listened to it 40 times in a row. And just and back then nobody was listening to Walkmans on the plane. You know what I mean? So I used to, by the way, used to be able to bump jams. For me to be able to play a song taking off was like my favorite thing to do as a kid. I liked to music supervise a lot, so even at a young age, I used to, you match music to real life. I would always,
absolutely.
like, set the cue to like as we're taking off. So it was like to Rosa Parks, setting that. So I saw Robert Downey Jr. once we were like in the air. I asked the stewardess, I was like, this is what was always in me, I think.
Yeah.
That even the Barry Gibb story I told you, it's like people when I tell them they like don't believe me, but I'm like I just think it's just always how I was, not having a dad and being on my own.
Yeah.
So I was like, can you have him sign this for me, my book, my Ordinary People book? So she's like, okay. So she goes up there, which would never happen today.
Yeah, you can't do that now.
She went up there, came back with the book, he signed it. She was like, he said you can come up there and say what's up. I was like, word? So I walk up there, I was like, hey, I'm Dustin. He was like, you could sit down, man. So I probably sat with him on this flight for like an hour. He gave me a Coke, I ordered Coke, whatever.
Really?
I told him I love movies. I want to be in the entertainment industry. So at the time, he was making a movie called Wonder Boys by Curtis Hanson, who directed LA Confidential. Shout out to Wonder Boys. I love that movie that was filmed in Pittsburgh.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Michael Douglas, if you have a chance, I love that. Michael Chabon wrote it. He wrote Mysteries of Pittsburgh. And
LA Confidential was incredible.
It was incredible. But Michael Chabon's a famous, Pittsburgh writer who also wrote it. He gave me the script and signed it for me.
Really?
Yeah. And it had his mom's phone number in it. It was like an ICM script.
Wow.
So when I got back, so I vividly remember like landing in California and my uncle and grandfather, who are originally from Pittsburgh, who could care less about entertainment. I was like, I just met Robert Downey Jr. Like, what the fuck ever. They did not care. So when I got back to Pittsburgh, my boy Jason Tobias, who's still one of my best friends to this day, who's been working in the entertainment industry as a post-production
I had a Mrs. Tobias teacher. She was a nice lady.
Might have been his mom, maybe.
Might have been.
For
Who
real.
knows?
I mean that. And Jason's, it's so ironic when we look back on our lives. I mean, Jason's worked with Linklater, and I mean, he just worked on Suspiria. I mean, So him and I figured out where they were shooting the movie, and we went out there and we lied our way onto the set. Like I got us through security. I'm 16 years old. You know what I mean? I brought the ICM script.
You were able to
That's how
finesse
much of a
some shit.
you know what I mean? That's how I've always been. But then finally, like after we were snooping around, like they finally brought a real producer, and the dude rolled up. That's where I learned my first lesson. He was like, "You got 30 seconds," and I looked at Jason. I was like, "Well, the gig's up,"
Yeah.
And I still to this day. And Jason was the one who ended up editing the senior video, and it's just funny how life pans out. So
yeah, for sure.
So fast forward, I had to drop out of college. I had no money. I lived with my brother briefly in Marlborough, Massachusetts, waiting tables. I came back to Pittsburgh, had a little money saved. To be honest, one of my friends kind of fucked me over on staying at his place. And I basically had $88 to my name, and I got a job at Minio's Pizza.
Minio's.
In Squirrel Hill. And
Okay.
I worked there with, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was a dude I went to high school with. He was a really smart kid, you know? Really smart kid, like got like a 1,400 on his SATs. I worked one night there making hoagies the whole night, like, cooking them in the oven.
Yeah.
Went back to his place with another coworker. We were smoking weed, drinking all night. I remember all these things for some reason. Listen to the Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead. And I remember he dropped me off back at my grandparents' crib at like 5:30 in the morning. He's like, "All right, man, I'll see you tomorrow." And I shut the door. It was snowing out. And he didn't hear me say it. And I got to preface, I'm not knocking him or what happened to him. But when I turned and I shut that door, I was like, man, the fucking hell you will. Because it was more like, I get emotional thinking about it now because I was like, this ain't going to be my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking him. I'm just like, I'm not going to end up a fucking junkie like my fucking mother. And that's how my dad did. My dad passed out at the wheel.
Yeah.
Driving out to work. I mean, he didn't pass out at the wheel on coffee. You know what I'm
for
saying?
sure.
So it's just that shit's, that was in me even at the time. You know what I mean? So just without missing a beat, I called my mom, who was in Florida at the time, with my stepdad and her third husband, my stepdad and my stepbrother. And I bought $86 for a one-way train ticket to Orlando.
You went down there.
I went down there.
How long were you down there?
I lived in Florida for 2 years.
Did you like it?
It was wild down there, you know.
Wild. Where at?
They lived in Port St. Lucie.
Where's that at?
It's like north. It's like a half an hour, 45 minutes, like north of West Palm Beach.
Okay.
So that was pretty wild. They owned a body shop down there. So I used to like sand cars and tape cars up
really?
and like do that type of shit.
So how old are you when this is down there?
This is like 19, 20, 21.
Yeah,
you know, I was
yeah.
like probably at the tail end of being 19.
Okay.
And I mean, we can't, I have stories from there you wouldn't even fucking.
I bet my dad lived down there for a minute, right by Ybor City in Clearwater.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
Yeah, he's told me some wild shit.
Well, so my parents are, my stepdad, Cosmo Sr. and Cosmo Jr., shout out. I can't even put it into words. Like Joey Coco Diaz is somebody in who I've talked to, and the first time I ever met him, I told him I was like, "Dude, you are my stepdad." But I know
He's
nobody
one
will
of my
ever believe
favorites.
this. My stepdad's more wild. For real.
Yeah. If he's more wild than Joey Diaz, and he got a wild.
I know
guy.
it sounds like I know people are listening. It's like you're wrong. I'm like, I'm telling you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure he is.
And even on the drug whatever. So anyway, so I won't get too much into the Florida shit. But long story short, my boy was driving out to L.A. Craigslist first came out. It was like right when it came out.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies, when I was in Florida, you know, was like, I worked at TGI Fridays. I was like living on a couch for a year on this island, Hutchinson Island. And my boy, I had a dude driving out there to like live there. And my buddy was like, man, you should just stay. And I was like, for real? So halfway out there, I remember I was in Phoenix, Arizona off this Craigslist ad of this commune house in Venice Beach, California. And
Yeah.
This is 2003. And it was Burning Man. It was the first week of Burning Man.
Really?
And I remember the chick called. She was like, nobody's at the house. Everybody's at Burning Man. But you sound like a good dude, so you can probably stay. It was 17 people lived in a one house.
Jesus.
So I moved there, and but I got to tell you, it's like I always told people, it's like the Cliff Notes. Moving, people are like, man, you live with all those people. I was like, one, it wasn't that bad. And two,
it wasn't that bad?
It wasn't that bad. I was so happy that, man, I remember being on that bus for the first time and having that freedom. And also, like I said, even the crazy shit I left in Florida, whatever.
Yeah.
I remember that moment sitting on the back of the bus. And
it's like, why not? Why not go out
I
there?
made it a point in my head in that moment. I go, Dustin, remember how you feel right now.
Yeah.
Like, remember how you feel and how grateful you are for this. And I've told this when people, their reactions like 17 people, I'll go, if I had a studio apartment and I stand out, I first moved to LA, I go, how do I take the bus? How do I get a job?
Oh, absolutely.
How do I do this? Dude, I had people with 50 years experience coming at me like,
that's a really good, that's a good point.
You know, like, so dude, I ended up working.
And if there's 7 people I'm sorry, there's 17 people living in a house, like they're obviously like, they probably know how to like do all this shit that you need to learn how to do. Budget,
like,
live modestly, live the right way you're supposed to. That's a good point. I never even would have thought of that.
And that really helped me. And honestly, I think part of it I didn't really know until, probably, hindsight's 2020. So it's like, so that really helped me. Plus, I was loved at everybody. Somebody was always home.
Yeah, for sure.
They
Plus,
also had these like star pods in the back, and all these guys are really
What do you
some
mean
of the people's like
pods?
original. So funny because these guys are like original burners,
Yeah.
So star pods, they're just like really tricked out tents, basically.
Okay,
super
okay.
nice tents in the backyard.
So these guys were they were wild. If they're in Burning Man, they were wild.
Those guys can build shit like nobody's
Oh, yeah.
business. So it's like,
have you ever been to Burning Man?
well, I always joked. I was like, I never had to go because
But
I
you lived
there.
you lived
Dude,
there.
they came back the second week after I'd been living there for a week. Everybody's head to toe with dirt, and everybody's eyes are all dilated.
I
and
know,
just
dude.
fucking,
It looks insane. Any of the videos online and like the big ass art installations that they burn and shit. It's fucking insane. Look, interesting is a good way to describe it.
Yeah, I never thought I needed to go, but yeah, so I lived there because I lived it, working there. And I knew there were other people that lived around the way there that were like, kind of.
Are these people like mess around with drugs and hallucinogens while you're there?
Some, yeah. I mean, look, there were different shapes and sizes of people that lived there. Like so many different stories of some people were totally sober. Some people, again, I was so green and so young.
Probably made for an interesting coming up a couple years.
I mean, it was the shit, it was like, and again, it was incredible. For me, it was just like.
What were you doing for work?
Yeah, so the first place I worked at was Charlie Chaplin's old house got turned into shops right on the Strand in Venice.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like a cafe that's not there anymore that I worked at. And I worked there for like only a couple weeks. I think it was like 2 weeks.
What was Venice as wild as it is now? Like
it was better back then, man. It was more dangerous back then because there were actual like for real gangs there. Venice is not the same now. I'm sorry.
I went in
Sound like such a hipster
2011,
asshole,
and it was just like it was overwhelming with just like the people and like all the street performers and like
it's too much. Not to say it's too much now. I mean, one of my best friends still lives there.
Yeah,
He's a surfer. Obviously, it's like surfer though. But it's just back then. I always say it's same thing with like when I lived in Bushwick, kind of, even though I'm part of the problem too, is like when you see places like that sort of quote unquote get gentrified or kind of taken over.
Yeah.
I would say the only natural resources those places have are its culture.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is these people come in. Like, dude, when I lived in Bushwick once, man, I'm walking down the block and there was a fucking white girl in front of a graffiti mural shooting a music video, sing rapping. And I'm sorry, I was listening to my earbuds so loud and I didn't realize how loud I said it, but I go, Jesus Christ. And I threw my hands up and the whole crew fucking looked at me. But I'm like, you know what? You should be fucking ashamed of yourself. You know, it's part of it. I know it sounds terrible, but it's like, it's one thing like you're reaping the benefits of that, but you know, you're not giving anything back. You know?
Nothing of substance. You're not giving any. Yeah, I get
and
what you're
opening,
saying.
you know, these, I hate to even use the term, but these huge yuppie establishments that are so expensive and, you know, just all this shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm not hating on it. It's just Venice to me is different.
Yeah, for sure. I bet it is.
The Strand's always going to be that, you know, I think there. And then I think with recreational weed, I think we'll see how it goes because it could make it even more just ridiculous, you know? So,
yeah, who knows?
So I worked at that cafe for like 2 weeks, which it was at the end of the summer. I moved there in September, so they couldn't really, you know, hang on to me. And I was like, really, I didn't know what was going to happen, man. Another story I told a Jamaican cab driver this story once is I was so broke. I think I had a couple days to find a job because I was there for a month. I had enough money to stay for the first month. And I walked from Venice to Beverly Hills for a job interview at the Hamburger Hamlet on Wilshire and Beverly. That's not there anymore. But nobody believes me. They're like, you walk from Venice to Beverly Hills?
How far is that?
I don't know. It took me like 3 hours, though. I remember that my cab driver turned around and he's like, you really did that? Because he lived there. And I was like, yeah, man. Then I went to the job interview.
Got to do what you got to do.
Dude, you got to do what you got to do. I went to the job interview. I had this huge hoop in my ear at the time.
Yeah.
And at the end of the interview, he was like, if you work here, would you take that out? I was like, man, if you hire me right now, I'll take it out right now. He was like, all right, take it out. I was like, word. I took it out right in front of him. So I got that job, and then things, you know, from there started moving a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
I got an internship up the hill for this woman named Alexandra Rose, who produced Overboard and Big Wednesday and stuff like that.
Are you still fucking around with like making movies and writing or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm still writing. You know, I still. Yeah, so she actually was like it was like doing interning. You know, she had every script you could think of. You know, so I started stealing scripts from her. So, but on her same street is the Château Marmont Hotel. I don't know if you heard of the Château Marmont before.
I feel like I've heard of it, but I don't know the...
It's a really famous hotel. It's one of the more famous hotels in LA for like of famous people staying there and whatever. Like Jim Morrison, you ever see the Doors movie?
Yeah,
When he's hanging out of the window of the hotel?
Yeah,
that's the
it.
Château Marmont.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
They like rode their motorcycles through the lobby.
Unreal.
So one day I was like, man, I just want to pop in and see if they're hiring.
Yeah.
So I popped in and I talked to the manager, and I remember he's like, well, we're not hiring, but if you come back in like 2 months, whatever, 3 months. So I came back, and they hired me as a busboy. And for me, I got to admit, my boy Stenson right now is actually writing. There was a big Vanity Fair article because they're like celebrating like the hotel's birthday or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's writing a memoir about it. So I actually just hit him up and sent him a few stories of my own. But I can't tell you, man, I've been thinking about those times a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I will admit, because I'm a pop culture junkie and nerd, and working there it was like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I bet. You probably see all kinds of people popping in.
It was like, I hate to say it was like a detriment. In some respects, it was dangerous because you're so close to it that you're like, this is nothing. You know, you do get high off.
It might like skew your view.
I mean, 1,000%. I mean, I have, you know, for me, again, it was like, dude, it was a pleasure.
It was like big people walking through there and shit.
Dude, I mean, I ended up buddying up with one of the waiters, and I ended up moving out of after 9 months of living in LA, which I didn't even tell you, I ended up getting a commercial agent eventually.
Oh, yeah.
I had booked a commercial by that time.
What commercial?
A Blockbuster commercial.
No way.
Which you may not have heard of. And I did a national radio spot for them.
Really?
So I was kind of moving. I did like an MTV thing.
So wait, let me ask you. Let me put a pin in that. What's like the process of you like breaking into that world?
So I started taking improv classes at Groundlings.
Oh, okay.
Right away. And I started taking scene study classes at Ivana Chubbuck Studios.
Yeah.
She was like, I guess she's like Brad Pitt's coach and like Halle Berry. And
no big deal or nothing.
You don't usually train with them when you start or whatever. So, you know, I was kind of doing that, and it was like this girl, I think it was one of my scene partners for a scene. We were doing like a 16 candle scene or something.
Okay.
And we were like, her and I, she like took me to meet with like or no, maybe I was interning for some agency, an extras casting place, and they sent me, oh yeah, I remember. The girl just wanted to send me. And she also sent the other girl with me.
Yeah.
But it was actually a blessing because we were just able to do our scene together.
Absolutely.
And it was kind of an LA thing where we were both sitting next to each other, and the guy goes to me, he goes, I'm gonna sign you right now. Because I got headshots done already and stuff like that. And it was like, I think we should do this and blah, 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 blah. But it was obviously like, I don't think he ever signed her.
So you filmed a commercial for Blockbuster.
Eventually, yeah. So I booked, I think that was like I did really well like early on, pretty easy.
Now, can I get like, can we get in depth? Like, how much did a commercial for Blockbuster pay?
Well, back then, yeah. I mean, I was still living at that Venice house, dude.
Yeah.
And I got, the first check was like a couple $100, but the second 2 checks, dog, they were like $3,600 a pop.
Really?
But I'm saying going from like, and again, if anybody's listening to me that's done commercials, I mean, if you're in a good spot, because I have some really good friends, a lot of Chicago, really good Chicago improv and comedy guys. I have a lot of friends who still work a lot, and they make, if you're in a good spot, man, you could, if you book 3 commercials
talks
a year,
about
you're
he got
killing.
on, I think like, was it Dell commercials or some shit? Or he was on some like chain of commercials. He said that it was like the biggest thing for him in the beginning.
If you say a word, I had one line. I say more explosions.
Really?
That's it.
That was it.
But it's because I have a line. And I remember being at that house with that $3,600.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like Publishers Clearinghouse, dude.
Yeah, that's nuts.
I was like
dude.
so pumped.
Probably a game changer. And you're what, like 23, 24?
Oh, man, I think I was like 22 by then.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's probably huge for you. You're out there.
I couldn't even afford, I didn't even have a TV, dude. I was working at the Chateau that I haven't even seen, by the way, this is ironic. I've never seen the commercial.
Oh, really?
I even reached out to Blockbuster eventually to try to get it. They sent me literally every version of the commercial.
R.I.P.
But I could never get it. I never got it. It was funny.
Blockbuster was definitely something that will always be like pivotal in my growing up. My parents were cool to the fact that I guess because my brother was 6 years older, like I was able to watch like pretty much whatever. Like they weren't like, oh, if it's R, you ain't watching it. Like I watched everything. I remember being like probably like 8 watching like John Carpenter's Vampires, just being like, what the fuck? This is insane. But my aunt and uncle owned a video store whenever I was super young.
That's so dope.
Yeah, they own one in White Oak, but that's how I started getting into it. Like the Monster Squad right there.
Yeah.
I just remember like
one of the best.
Like that's like my favorite movie ever. I have a whole leg sleeve of it. But I remember like being exposed to that whenever I was younger. I still talk about it with people. I just remember like the covers of like the movies.
I just remember just walking through dude. My best friend growing up, remember West Coast Video? His dad owned like 6 West Coast Videos.
And it's insane because like, Netflix is cool now, but sometimes I'll get lost trying to find a Netflix like movie.
You end up not watching the movie. It takes you like a fucking hour.
Yeah, it's insane.
The thing that I missed, the reason why my boy Noah, it was the shit, because remember how long it would take movies to go to the thing? That was the best because his dad would get the movies. Yeah,
you'd be able to get him.
Dude, before Fight Club came out, I remember I was like, that's mine. You're giving me Fight Club. I don't give a shit. Because when he got kids, oh my God.
Oh, I bet.
Because he got kids like 5 months before it came to tape. So it was like, that was like a big deal at the time.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, I think like, within of how much of the perfect, because by the way, it was the same thing with me. Because living with grandparents, and the one thing I will say about my mom is, I had her do one time for my birthday, Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. Have you seen Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon before?
Yeah.
That movie you couldn't find on VHS. You couldn't order it. You couldn't find it. You could rent it, but you couldn't find it.
The Last Dragon?
This is back in the day before there was no way.
I guess, yeah. That's a good
I'd go
point.
to like Suncoast Video and try to order it.
That's a
it
good
was out of
point.
print. So my mom, I mean, I used to drag her to Heads Together in Squirrel Hill. There was like this cult video store. It was a downstairs thing.
Really?
Where you could rent like Evil Dead 2. You could rent movies
like weird
Suspiria
shit.
and fucking
like the
Dead
weird
Alive
shit.
and shit that you couldn't necessarily find.
Yeah, Spit on Your Grave.
Right,
Like
exact type
weird
shit.
like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I mean, Faces of Death and all that type shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
For me, I vividly.
That's crazy. There was a place to have that. What was it called again?
Heads Together.
Heads Together.
Shout out. I hope we got some OG Pittsburghers listening.
Man, I've never heard of that. Heads
Yeah,
Together. Did they sell like other weird shit in there?
No, the other thing too is they just had books. Again, I was younger. I'm sure.
okay.
I think it was like a half head shop too.
Okay,
yeah.
But
they had like really cheap books, that you could buy.
Wow,
and
that's
stuff.
really awesome.
But my mom, that was the one thing, man. Like
She exposed you to cool shit.
and my brother was the shit too. My brother would go at Chuck E. Cheese in Monroeville. He'd go to the dumpster and steal all the tickets and take me into the fucking arcade and let me like get whatever you want.
That is insane.
That hustle shit,
My brother, whenever he was at Penn State Erie, Mountain Dew was doing this competition where you collect caps as points, and if you got 500 you would be able to turn them in to get an Xbox. But the Xboxes were super limited. They would immediately go away once they would release them.
Right.
So my brother, I remember he bought a Spotlight from Walmart, and he had an X-Acto knife, and he was dumpster diving in the recyclable dumpsters and taking all the cups, because like there was a point on the cups and then there was point on caps from the bottles. And I remember he has this old trash can that he still got all these caps to. So me and him, the deal was, he was like, oh, I'll get all these caps and everything, you help me enter them in the computer, and then we'll have an Xbox for free. So this motherfucker was dumpster diving. He would steal sleeves of cups from the cafeteria from people he would know and just take all the points off of them. But like that hustle type shit.
Did he get the Xbox?
Yeah, we got it with
That's what the fuck I'm
True
talking
Crime
about.
Streets of LA was the free game that
Fuck
came with
yeah.
it.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Epic shit, dude.
That's what it is. I mean, that's why, again, it's just like these stories. I'm not trying to...
I like how you say that you're just a way to like finesse things, because that's how I grew up. Like my dad had me at flea markets,
Right.
and like I was always around like adults. My mom worked all the time. My dad was a stay-at-home dad, so I was in junkyards, garages. I was always exposed to like the raw culture.
It builds character. I mean,
Absolutely.
and that's what I was going to say about the Chateau, where it was like funny how you like... myself, I should have gotten fired one weekend. I had a big, Rockstar games. They make, Grand Theft Auto and shit. I mean, legally, I don't know if I could say, but I don't really give a fuck. There was one weekend that, and the reason why I didn't get fired, truthfully, is because I digress. I'll tell you one story. I was on a cattle call audition.
Yeah, what's that mean?
A cattle call, what I mean is like there's like 100 people there for one spot, So there's like so many people in the room.
I've never heard that terminology. That's interesting.
But cattle, so we're in the room and there's this big broy dude right basically like in front of me in another set of row of seats.
Yeah.
And he's trying to talk to me so everybody can hear him talk. So he's just using me in this moment.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. And then at one point he's like, where do you work? Or no, what does he say? He was like, oh yeah, he starts talking about how he works at the Saddle Ranch. You know the Saddle Ranch? It's kind of like...
Saddle Ranch.
It's the bar on Sunset Boulevard that has the, it has the mechanical bull.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's kind of famous, but it's a little cheesy.
Yeah.
So he's like, I work at the Saddle Ranch. So at this point, like him talking to me, I was getting like a little irritated.
Yeah.
Because he was just such like a douchebag type. And I was like, I knew it. I knew what he was talking about, so I just had to say it. I was like, wow. I was like, he was like, where do you work? And I was like, I work at the Château Marmont, actually. Whatever. Not making a big deal. And then out loud, he's like, getting all defensive. He's like, well, we get famous people at the Saddle Ranch all the time. But it's so stupid. But then when he said it, man, without missing a beat, I was like, yeah, but you don't serve him room service at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And when I said that, a couple people chuckled. And the only reason why, too, is like, what I meant by that is like, you just develop a totally different relationship. You could wait on fucking, Lindsay Lohan every day at a restaurant.
Yeah, but you
but
see
you
a
ain't
different
serving
side
her,
of her.
She's not coming to the fucking door in her underwear and having you come in like, what's up, Dustin? How's it going? You know what I'm saying? It's a totally different, which by the way is true.
Oh, that happened?
Which is a totally different thing. You know what I mean? So for me, the
Lindsay Lohan.
the relationships that, dude, her and her mom, the day that I quit my job there to work at a website, her and her mom asked me to work for them. I was like fixing her phone.
Was this before or after the national TV spot where she was like, I only did coke like 3 or 4 times?
Oh, it was well before. I even tried to, she was a sweet girl, man. She was so, I saw her at 21 just getting swallowed.
For sure.
It's so
it got to be
sad.
insane to be a child star and like kind of be in that world. Like you're fucked up the whole time. Look at like people like Justin Bieber. Like that kid, he's never been able to have like a normal life.
I felt for her. I mean, there's aspects of it that I really felt for her because it's all you ever know. You know what I mean? It's like my stepbrother, I stay with my stepbrother Kazi is like, he's just like his dad. He's kind of a rarity now, but he's like so blue collar to the max and so Pittsburgh. And it's just who he is. It's who he was raised.
People
it's
embrace
how he
it.
was raised.
Fuck it.
She's a fucking studio baby.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's like, you can't knock it. But what was I saying though? But in terms of that always made me laugh of that situation with that guy because again, you just have different relationships.
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
Them. So, you serve somebody room service day after day after day, like Ben Stiller's parents, Ann Mir and Jerry Stiller.
Yeah.
Did I get to hang out with Jerry at the bar and give him a Bloody Mary and talk about Seinfeld or
Shout
whatever?
out heavyweights.
I used to exchange DVDs and comedy CDs with his mom. Dude, these are Chicago comedy legends.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm not
absolutely.
saying this. I'm just saying it is. I was raised by Jewish grandparents.
Are you out there are you watching comedy and going to watch comedy and seeing everything?
So at the time too, it's like Bill Hicks is my guy.
Yeah.
Bill Hicks is. I mean, I still love comedy a lot, but I always said Bill Hicks to me. The reason why I love him so much is I was very alone back then. I didn't have anybody. I moved there with nothing. I didn't know. I moved there with nobody. I've been on my own basically my whole life. And I remember at that time working at the Chateau, ironically, because Ann and Jerry had never heard of Bill Hicks.
Really?
So I was like, yo, you've never heard of Bill? Ann was the best. There'd be a party outside and all these fucking froofy people doing whatever. She'd be hanging with all the staff, like drinking a martini, chilling, Yeah. I emailed her up until a year before she died.
Man.
Well after I quit my job, and, we were pretty tight.
That's
anyway,
awesome.
She was I can't say enough about both of them. So, what was I going to say? So she had never heard of him. I let her borrow a DVD, and she loved him. She was like successor to Lenny Bruce. She used to write me handwritten thank you letters with Château Marmont.
That's
paper.
awesome.
So fast forward years later, I'm working at Spike.com.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get these email blasts of covering stuff. And this is before the Bill Hicks documentary came out and before internet really even kind of blew him up.
Yeah.
But I was a super fan. And the thing I told you was, the thing is for me with Bill when I was out here, and I worked, working the Chateau at the time or whatever, I felt alone. You feel very alone. And Bill was the type of artist. My favorite artists are the ones you feel like you know them.
Absolutely.
They bear so much of themselves that I feel like I have a relationship. I have a real relationship.
You're able to see
with them.
behind.
Right.
That's why I like Burt Kreischer and people like that, because
Joey Diaz.
Yeah, he don't give a fuck. He talks about everything in his life,
and it makes you feel not alone.
Yeah. He's not so distant. It makes you feel more intimate with him.
Totally. We're like rock stars. That's why Pantera is one of my favorite bands of all time, because them coming out of the hair metal era, they were like, dude, fuck all this big stage. They love Van Halen, but they flip that on its head, where it's the whole idea that you're so away. It's like Kiss and all that shit. Yeah. Where it was they got in the pit. It's like Phil jumping in the pit. It's
that's dope.
I like metaphor,
that. It's the people that take the time to not give back, but not be so above regular people.
You get to have the fucking lead singer sweat on you.
Yeah, for sure.
What fucking's better than that?
Yeah, nothing.
Jesus Christ. So, for me, those are my artists. So fast forward to
working at Spike.
I got an email blast, and it was there was a new little box set coming out for Bill, and it was does anybody want to do phone interviews with Bill's brother and mother? I was like, sign me up. So because I was at Spike, and it wasn't, again, at the time, it was still on a cult level. Yeah. So because I was Spike, they gave me the first spot.
Oh, really?
30 minutes, they were so happy. Because back then, I and we can talk about that. I don't know, see how much time we have, but I
have unlimited time.
Okay, cool. I digitized MTV's first music video library, and
really,
I will say I have the claim to fame to putting up.
I'm
the first person to put up every Michael Jackson video.
Now wait, how do you even get involved with this shit? If
it's so that's what I apologize. It's my life has been so all over.
No, it's all right. It's all right. But how do you you already have experience in this tech doing some techie shit?
No, when I was working at the Chateau, I went to a party. I went to a party with a friend.
Okay.
A very private party.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of minus the fucking
eyes wide shut
bitches. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a tuxedo and mask party.
Jesus.
So I go to it and I'm outside. So there was a private bar, and I remember my homie and her boyfriend at the time. It was kind of boring.
Yeah.
Dude. Eventually, a couple times we took the masks off, and one of the guys was like, "Do I know you? Oh, I know you from the Chateau." They knew me from working there.
Yeah.
So, fucking, we're at the bar and we're kind of bored, and dude, my homie Parker opens her hand. She has 3 ecstasy pills in her hand.
Wow.
And we just go,
Jesus.
all right, fuck it. And we all take it. So fast forward an hour later, I'm outside smoking a cigarette, talking to this English guy, and I'm talking about music. And like I said, I'm just a nerd. I just know about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, how would you like to, put some music videos on a website? And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. And he owned this website. He was the CEO of this website called iFilm, which is actually it's technically the first viral video site.
iFilm.
iFilm.
Okay.
It eventually turned into Spike.com, but it had just been bought by Viacom / MTV Networks.
Okay.
So he brought me in for a little job interview, and I just ended up fucking getting the job. And that's what I was talking about with Lindsay and stuff. That's when I quit my job.
Oh, okay.
So that's how I got into that. And they had different channels. It was the movies channel, the music channel. So I ended up doing the music channel. And from then, the first 6 months I worked there, pretty much every music video that was on the internet, I premiered that video. It was before, things obviously started to snowball from there, but it was Arctic Monkeys. I was just premiering all this shit.
Wow.
And also getting to interview everybody.
Oh, they're letting you interview shit?
Say it again.
They're letting you interview people?
Yeah, I got to interview everybody. I got to, I mean, for me, younger bands, at the time it was always funny, like Wolf Mother and whoever. But I also got to fucking go to Stuart Copeland, the drummer from the Police.
Yeah.
Go to his house and interview him, and Robbie Robertson from the band.
Wow.
I've been on Willie Nelson's ranch
That's
in Texas.
insane.
And, shit like that. I was so lucky, to have that
You had
happen.
to fall into that.
Yeah, but same shit, man. It's like, it's fake it till you make it, dude. The fear,
Absolutely.
that fear will keep you alive, man.
Absolutely. I mean, like, you got to learn how to do it.
Yeah.
Just fucking do it. If you're gonna start something and do it, you have to, like, that's why you got to do it 100%. You got to fake it till you make
Dude,
it.
I'm a Bukowski. I mean, it's ironic over the last couple of years because a lot of my life, even I lived in my old apartment was like 3 blocks away from his apartment in East Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then I lived actually with my uncle in San Pedro for a while, and that's where he lived the last 15 years of his life.
He was a
The
wild
real
dude.
last like dive bars are like in San Pedro. So I was like weird. He's buried in San Pedro and stuff, and he's like, again, one of my favorite writers of all time. But it's so interesting because it is the go all the way type shit.
I
You know
love
what
the
mean?
quote, find something you love and let it kill you.
Right. I mean,
It's
that's
like-
my whole life.
yeah,
That's
like,
become my
that's-
whole existence.
That's
you know?
everything you would ever want. Like, that's like the
Yeah.
perfect thing. It's like, find something you love. You're going to die anyway, but
Right.
find something you love and do it.
Yeah,
do it all
man.
the way.
But I'll try to, and I'm not forgetting these, and I'll try to finish a lot of these stories. But so the Bill Hicks thing happened because, eventually we got bought, we turned into Spike.com.
Yeah.
The music thing started turning more into like, then I took over the movies channel. They promoted me to senior producer. I covered South by Southwest.
Oh,
That's
really?
where the Willie Nelson thing. So I covered that. That was that was some of my favorite shit. Just go down there. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. As far as the internet's concerned, where I was with iFilm, it's just fucked up because a lot of it didn't see the light of day because it was so early. But in terms of going down there with the crew, run and gun interview bands, I was kind of like the first wave of that. I did it before MTV.com did it.
Really?
I fucking personally don't like MTV.
Yeah.
I don't like working for them.
Yeah.
Just because it was always like,
It's a whole different world
well,
now.
they're also late to the game. Anyway, I can't get into it. But what was I going to say? So that's how eventually Spike ended up happening, and then things started to change. That's how we were talking about the UFC.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking this call with Bill's mom and brother, and at the top of the call, his mom was like, well, are you a fan of Bill's? And I was like, well, can I just tell you my story really quick? And I tried to tell him as quickly as possible the story I told you about driving every day to work. And like, I get emotional thinking about it, not having a father and all these things where I'm like, I felt alone. And like, Bill was so open that he made me feel like I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
And like in that moment, his brother, the first thing he said, he's like, what are you doing this weekend? And I was like, why? He was like, would you like to come to the premiere of American, Bill's documentary in LA? And I was like, you're fucking A right. And we all bonded on the phone, had this big interview with him. And then I went down, I met Bill's brother and mother, hung out, met all Bill's old friends.
Wow.
Still to this day, his brother and I, Steve, still keep in touch.
That's incredible.
So fast forward a few years later when I'm living in New York, I had a friend who was borrowing a book, Jesus' Son, which is a great book. And in it was a piece of folded up paper. And I opened it, and it was from Ann Mira. And it was like, Dear Dustin, Hicks was great, ! Successor to Lenny. Thanks so much again. Love, Jerry and Ann Stiller.
That's incredible.
So I was still emailing Steve at the time, so I was able to send that to Steve.
Yeah.
So at the time, to be able to just have a small little part to play in that relay,
Absolutely.
of like, again, these Chicago, as far as comedy is concerned, like they are
The pivotal,
legends and,
the legends.
as far as comedy history is concerned. So the fact that I like had my own little,
Bond with them.
I gave something to Bill, kind of. Do you know what I'm saying? Like for me, for how much it,
And
again,
for
I
you
get
to be a big
emotional.
fan.
That, and for me to be able to give even a fucking inkling back to him was
Yeah.
like, it meant everything to me.
That's really awesome.
So that was a big, that definitely was a profound.
How long were you at Spike?
6 years. So it was like I filmed for about 2.5, and then I was there for about 6 years. And then I'll briefly tell you when I was at the Chateau, the weekend I almost got fired.
Yeah.
This was the moment I realized like I didn't want to keep working there because it was tough. Like I had great experiences. I've gotten drunk with Tarantino. The
Jesus.
story I told my homie Stinson is my Hunter S. Thompson story.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, he's my favorite writer of all time. And I mean, just my life, like you just said,
a wild-ass
you find
dude.
something you love and you let it kill you. I mean, it's interesting because the story that I told my buddy Stinson, I sound like such a name dropper, but one of the last gigs I worked over E3 was we had Joe Russo, who directed Infinity War was on.
Oh, yeah.
And I was running talent for them, so I have to prep talent and tell them what the deal is for creative. It was like a Q&A thing.
Yeah.
And but he got there real early. So it was like by the time I'm walking him to stage, we're like fucking simpatico. We're like
Yeah,
cool
yeah,
at the
yeah.
time. So we started talking a little bit, and I don't know how it got brought up that I worked at the Chateau, but he's like, you have any interesting stories? Like, it dawned on me recently, now that I turned like 36, 37, that my interaction with Hunter S. Thompson was more unique than any one of his famous friends. The first night he ever came in, I knew, dude, when I heard he was like on the books to come in, I was like so pumped. I'm working every day he's in there.
I bet.
So the first day they had a party for his last book that came out called Hey Rube. It was like, dude, the people that were at his fucking table waiting for him was like Benicio del Toro, Sean Penn, Angelica Houston, Harry Dean Stanton.
Jesus Christ.
What's her name from Roadhouse? The female, the chick from Roadhouse.
I just watched it because
not Laura Dern.
no, they were just
Kelly
talking.
Lynch.
Yeah, Kelly Lynch, because I just watched the Bill Murray stories, and there was a part in there where Kelly Lynch's husband. They were talking about the lore of Bill Murray stories. You know what I'm talking about? How he'll just show up and do people's dishes and stuff.
Right, and their weddings and stuff.
Yeah, so Kelly Lynch's husband, who's a producer, said that he would just get these random phone calls at like 3 a.m, and it would just be Bill Murray saying, "I'm watching Patrick Swayze have sex with your wife."
Oh my God, that's so funny.
You're just like, Jesus, that's
is so
hilarious.
funny. Yeah, so it was like, I mean, the cast of characters was like, I mean, you couldn't, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It was
that's
like everything
insane.
you could have fucking dreamed. And I vividly remember being at the manager's stand in the dining area right when you walk and check in, and Hunter, and everybody's waiting for him, and fucking Hunter comes in like a fucking bat out of hell. But as he's coming in, his knee, you could tell his knee was giving him a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So as he's like walking, at some point, it's like, dude, his knee's starting to give out on him. So,
Oh, really?
And sometimes when that happens, you start moving more faster and faster. And I thought he was going to fall, and then out of nowhere, Benicio del Toro and fucking Sean Penn, I remember, ran up and grabbed him before he fell.
That's crazy.
So he's at the head of this table. The two things I vividly remember are this. One, I remember I come to the table with a shrimp Caesar salad, and I remember Kelly Lynch. I was like, shrimp Caesar salad? I look at her. She looks me dead in the eye. Doesn't point to anybody. She goes, Harry Dean Stanton, without missing a beat. Because motherfucker, I'm like Repo Man,
Yeah.
fucking Escape from New York to the, I'm a fucking nerd. So I was just happy I passed that test in that moment. And then the next thing I remember vividly is walking by, and this was like, it was like rhythm, boom, boom, boom. It's like Hunter's at the head of the table. He blew a line of Coke off his watch. Angelica Houston is hand feeding him piping hot bolognese spaghetti, and he has a fresh margarita right in front of him. So it's like, rip the Coke, bolognese. Oh, it's so fucking hot. Got to rip half the margarita to get it down.
It's like a tequila shot almost.
But it was like, that's just how he rolled. But you got to understand, he's in full Raoul Duke character.
Yeah, I bet.
So then, dude, Harry Dean Stanton was so drunk, I had to like physically put him onto the elevator and all this stuff.
Jesus.
So the next day I come into work early. I get a call from room service. It's Hunter's wife. She's like, hey, I'm like, hey, this is Dustin with room service. How can I help you? She's like, and it was always like ordering every 2 hours, like, ice cubes, espresso, it's like such that shit, And she's like, do you guys have a heating pad down there? And I'm like, well, we don't have a heating pad. What's the problem? He's like, well, we have somebody with a bad knee up here. And I was like, I lived through a knee operation in fucking middle school with my grandfather. I was like, I could take a hot towel or, put a towel in hot water and wring it out and wrap his knee, whoever.
Yeah.
She's like, all right, well, let's try that. So I go upstairs, fucking Hunter's there, fucking put the towel in hot water, wring it out, wrap that motherfucker. They call back an hour later, like, we don't know what the fuck you did, but this towel technique's off the chain.
Wow.
So from then on in, the next time I went up, like that same day, the second hour, he was like, Dustin, I don't know, He's like, you want a shivas? I was like, you're fucking right, I want a shivas. So for those next 2 weeks, I basically got to live the dream that like every time I was up there, he'd treat me so good. I got to talk to him about writing and life and whatever.
That is insane.
He'd be partying with people like, come here. If they'd be like smoking a joint, he'd like, let me, hit the joint or whatever.
Wow.
But the thing that I was talking to you about Joe Russo that was interesting, what happened was the second to last day, right before they were going to leave, his wife, when I came in, his wife was like, can you come to the bedroom? And I go, sure. She pulls me in the bedroom. And again, you got to understand, like I said, I had to take care of my grandparents, like hand and foot. So it's just like, I think that's why in that moment, same thing I was talking about with Dan Mira. It's just like, I just possess these kind of weird set of skills that she was like, Hunter really likes you. He's really comfortable with you and whatever. And she was like, we were actually wondering, I was wondering if you maybe help take him to the airport tomorrow. Even if it cost me my job, I told her right then and there, I was like, yes, 1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she walked me out to Hunter, and she goes, hey, Hunter, Dustin's going to help take you to the airport tomorrow. You cool with that? And in that moment when she asked him, I remember, because up to that point, like, that manliness, that person was blowing that line and eating that shit and the Raul Duke thing and living up to the fucking that character.
Yeah.
In that moment, there was like a chink in the armor in terms of being human and needing help.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Where when he's with Benicio or Sean or whatever, that ain't the case.
Yeah, he's an elite.
He's the character. He's fucking whatever. So I could see it in his eye in that moment where I was like, I kind of knew in that moment, I was like, he's not going to want me to help him. Even though he was like, yeah, like, yes. The last words he ever said to me were, he goes, right as I'm walking out the door, he goes, Dustin, you'll listen to me now. And I clicked my heels together and gave him the salute. I was like, aye, Captain, you know, and then left. I remember I was living in, still in Venice at the time. And I didn't have my car yet. So I slept at my boys in West Hollywood to stay close to the hotel.
Yeah.
And his wife called me first thing in the morning. She was like, Dustin, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think we need you after all. And we'll use your towel technique forever. And, she was really appreciative and it was all good,
That's wild.
But in hindsight, when I was, briefly, I didn't tell as my long ass winded version, but when I told Joe Russo that story, that's what I said, that I was like, and what I told my buddy Stenson, when I told him my version of the story, I was like, I probably got them through the hotel and the whole thing, compared to, I think he's had, a few other people, obviously a number of people in his life that have had that experience with him. But I just happened to have this extremely unique experience. Of being able
intimate
to see,
experience with someone.
Right. And then when he died, I did what you were supposed to do. I fucking rolled a joint. I put on Mr. Tambourine Man, which is what he requested. See, I knew I was a nerd on that tip there too, 'cause, I love him so much. So, I had my own little moment with it, and
that's awesome.
But it definitely on the same tip of, we're in that era now because, Instagram is a character.
Yeah.
So you even said it about me, and I told you earlier, I was like, who I am as a human being, when you meet me, even hearing me talk right now, I can't even begin to peel that onion on Instagram. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, for sure.
You can't see that at all of me on Instagram. I don't
Everyone is living just it's a weird life on Instagram because you only see the highlight reels of everything. Like you don't know how people really are and how they like their core, what they went through and like their backstory. You just see the shit that they post.
Well, it's like, I know that seems like a cute picture of a kid, but she could be a bitch right after that picture was taken.
Could be a bitch, right?
Like,
could be.
It's probably why she's smiling. She did some fucked up shit.
Unreal.
Yeah.
So you fucking worked at Spike for this long, and like you have some insane jobs.
Yeah, I was going to tell you real quick though. When I worked there was I had a really bad weekend one time.
Yeah.
At the Chateau, and this is when I realized that I didn't want to like work in there. Because some things let me down in that place, seeing artists behind the veil a little bit. Because, dude, I was a fucking, when I say I was, with the Bill Hicks shit, is like, as far as my like credo of what it is to be an artist, it's all or nothing. It's truth or nothing. You have a responsibility to tell the truth. That's how I felt about it.
Yeah.
And it was like seeing some people there that I just like, I thought were the shit, but were sellout or whatever I considered at the time. And I remember one night, 2 incidents happened. Saturday night, there was a girl that used to come around with a big Lionsgate producer all the time. He lived up on the hill. He had a fucking American bulldog that he would sit in a fucking chair at a table. That you bring him, he'd order bacon, and the fucking dog would try to bite you when you put the fucking bacon down. And he was a fucking dick. And his assistant was cool, but one night she was there, and I think someday, you drink, you have a couple drinks, because that was the thing there too. You could party and hang out with with people that stayed there. And I just kind of broke character a little bit, and I was like, come on, but he's kind of a dick, right? Because I thought we were cool like that.
Yeah.
Dude, she lawyered me. She was like, I can't continue to have this conversation with you right now. Because basically all she was doing, she was cutting the blood off, cutting the bleeding, where she was like, this cannot come back, that anything negative that was said about him coming from me. That's how she emailed my boss that night, the manager of the hotel.
Jeez.
So that happened Saturday night. I woke up the next morning and I had pool bar. I had to work the pool bar. I get into work. My boy Graham's there. He's like, yo, can you run? Everything's old timey there. So like everything's heavy and there's no, there's a shitty elevator. Pool's on the opposite side of the hotel. It's a lot of fucking work. So he's like, can you run all this food down? So there were 2 big parties out at the pool. Or one was a couple, a little mini family, and then like another was like 8 or 10 people.
Yeah.
So I go down there, and basically what Graham told me, he goes, they ordered orange juices, but we don't have any squeeze yet. We're trying to. Just tell them if they don't want to wait, we'll take it off the bill and get them something else, whatever. So I dropped their food. It's basically at the time E3 was happening.
Okay.
It was the CEO of Rockstar Games with his wife, his newborn baby, and his dad.
Jeez.
I dropped the food off. I go, hey, I'm really sorry. The orange juice deal, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to try to wait? They'll go, okay, yeah, we'll try. So I don't know what happened with that interaction, but I go up and I go to wait on this other table. As this is happening, my boy Rich, who was like the customer relations dude,
Yeah.
is talking to them, to Rockstar, and there's like a problem. You can tell there's a problem. And I walk up, I was like, is there a problem? They're like, they basically said that I talked to them in a weird way. And I go, well, I'm sorry. I basically right then and there, I was like, yo, if I did anything to offend you, I'm really sorry. I just tried to cut it right then and there. So that happened, and then I go upstairs, and this is when keeping it real goes wrong, where the orange juices were there right when I got upstairs. And I was like, fuck, should I take them down there?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm taking them the fuck down there. So I take them down. I don't say nothing to them. I don't make eye contact or anything. I don't say shit. And I just drop the orange juices. And right as I walk around the hedges, I hear his wife mumble something. And I go, excuse me, is there a problem? She goes, no, you just got a weird attitude. And I vividly remember saying this right to her. I go, my dad worked for U.S. Steel in the 80s. He got laid off. You know, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
And she laughed. They like chuckled. So basically, I left. I came back, and she was with the customer relations dude, and all hell was like, you know, they were just fucking. They had never been spoken to like this.
Yeah, yeah.
The good thing was, what helped me keep my job was the other party. They saw it all go down, and they saw how rude they just. All I'll say is they just saw how they were treating me.
Yeah, yeah.
So they had my back in that respect. So at that point, dude's brother was there. And right as I'm walking past him, I didn't look at them, and he wasn't looking at me, but he was like, fucking wanker. And I stopped right then and there. I kind of tilted my head a little bit. I was like, if you're going to say it to my fucking face. And he didn't say anything. And then I got a little Pittsburgh on him.
Yeah.
And then I just kept walking. So the funniest shit is I didn't know, like for E3 back then with Rockstar, they take up like 90% of the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
So basically what happened was like that Monday came around, I thought I was going into work to get fired. And basically because what I told you, I think because I had such great relationships with like Jerry Stiller, who like lived at the hotel because he's working on King of Queens.
Yeah, absolutely.
That I somehow did not get fired that weekend. So the next day I had to work, and fucking the Rockstar dude, I was like a hero to the employees because he had to come down there and still see me working there.
Yeah, you spoke up.
And because they were dicks to fucking, to a bunch of people. But so anyway, but I always found that really funny. But anyway, I thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah, that's insane that you worked there and you had those experiences with all them people. That's definitely wild to have, like, because I mean, over being in LA and shit like that, I feel like that people that are not there and haven't experienced that, they don't see how that's that's a reality. That could be a reality.
Yeah.
It's like working in that world with these types of people.
And it's tough too because like at the time when I come back to Pittsburgh and such, because you can tell by how I talk about it. I mean, it can kind of come off. It can be off-putting in terms of like being name droppy.
Yeah, but like that's just just like a realistic life.
Yeah.
I mean,
when I was younger though, when I come back here and talk to people about it, it was like I had to kind of dial myself back a little bit. You know? I mean, for me, I was like in a candy store.
Oh, I
Golden
bet.
Globes party, bumper to butt, like people you couldn't even move. I get to go stomach to stomach with James Gandolfini. Like, what's up? Sorry.
Jesus.
Whatever.
R.I.P.
Dude, fucking 1988 Grand I'm like carrying chairs upstairs. I'm in the garage. 1988 Grand Marquis, like 6 bungee cords holding on the fucking bumper. Valet pulls the fucking car up to leave. I'm like, whose fucking car is this? This big fucking tall old dude rounds the corner. He goes, well, I have my Mercedes here. Fucking Clint Eastwood. You know what I mean?
No
Where I'm like,
way.
he's living up to the fucking dream. I'm like, you're actually the guy I thought you were. You know what I'm saying? Those type of things. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So it's just like those. But ironically, 3 months after getting my job, 2 months after at iFilm, I was at the VMAs in New York, interviewing people on the red carpet, and people that stayed at the hotel were like, Dustin, what the fuck are you doing here? And I'm like, I ain't serving you room service at 7:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And that ended up working at that website, and that's sort of what happened there where, yeah, next thing you know, I was at the VMAs, fucking.
That's insane.
It was wild. It was wild.
So where does the whole you producing documentaries come from, and like how did you fall into that? Because there's some fucking big name people in was that your first project, like your first big project?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably say like in terms of my own personal project,
Yeah.
it was definitely like the first biggest thing I ever did. Basically, so I ended up. A funny story happened. I was working at Spike.com. Long story short, everybody around me got laid off except for me.
Okay.
And most of my new boss was in New York and all this shit. I'll try to keep it brief, but
No.
basically, I didn't hear shit for 2 weeks, and I thought I was basically eventually going to get let go. So we had an award show. They used to do the Scream Awards at the time. It was like the horror sci-fi.
Oh yeah,
award
yeah,
show.
yeah.
So I go there, to be honest, I had a couple beers in me and smoked a bowl, and I'm like in the audience. The first words my new boss, him and my other new like co-employee, the first words he ever said to me were, "You're working." because I was like shaking his hand, like, what's up? I was like, what's the problem? He's like, we have a sponsor photo booth down there. We're having problems getting talent in there. And this is what I've done. I always, I'm good at wrangling town, do all this stuff. So I go, all right, whatever, fuck it. So the second I get down there, I'm like, whatever, trying to hustle, get people in there. I have a guy dressed up as Darth Vader at some point in there. This is how life is. Dude, an entourage of like 15 people are going by me, and it's George Lucas in the middle.
Really?
It was all dudes. It was for that movie. I think it was like Red Wings or Red something, Red Tail. I don't know. It was like some...
Oh, Red Tails.
Red Tails.
Yeah, I remember that now.
So it's like all dudes, and then all I see in there and mixed in, sprinkled in, is this like maybe late 50s like white chick with curly, like gray hair.
Yeah.
And for some reason, as they're like going down, and they got pretty far past like the booth. I remember I grabbed her. I was like, yo, I'm so sorry to bother you. I was like, is there any way we can get George for a quick picture? She goes, no problem. I've been his publicist for 35 years.
Really?
Because I did set it up heavy where I was like, I know he probably won't do it, but she goes, okay. She literally went back and got him, brought him back, because he's notorious too for like, he doesn't like doing that stuff. Brought him back, walks right in with Darth Vader as he was about to leave, and puts his head on his shoulders, and then they take the picture.
Wow.
So by Monday, like ad sales, spike and everything, because then how much they can sell next year for the next award show based on the branding and having Darth Vader and Luke. Do you know what I'm saying? Behind whoever
sure.
their sponsor,
for sure,
Taco Bell or whatever, Axe body spray, the fuck. But at that point, my boss called me, gave me a little bit of a raise, and said, you can move to New York. They didn't pay to relocate me, but gave me the option because I was looking for a change.
Yeah.
So eventually, I ended up, I moved, I moved to New York. I lived in Bushwick, and I was living there for 2 years, like I said, just kind of working my fucking ass off. During that time, I started doing stand-up. I started taking, there's a guy named Rick Crom who teaches stand-up comedy classes at the Comedy Cellar.
Oh, okay.
And I had a couple friends who were doing stand-up at the time. So I was just like, I had always thought about it. The weird thing about stand-up, for me, which is so nuts to think about, because even when the Comedy Store was a wasteland, like I was around back then, but I just never thought I could do, I don't know. I just never thought, I just doubted me. I just didn't have
something
that
I've
confidence.
always wanted to do my entire life, but I just never made the commitment to do it. And I mean, luckily enough for me, I had a comedian named Matt Light on here, and he runs a March Madness competition, so he kind of obligated me to just say fuck it and do it, which I'm happy he did. They have another one coming up in April if you're if you're interested.
Yeah,
in
maybe
it.
if I can get my crap together of getting on to. But yeah, so I started, and I met Rick, and my relationship with him, like I started, because the thing is, at the time, he doesn't teach it there anymore, but his classes, when you take classes there on the weekends early on, it was in the Comedy Cellar. It was it was like, downstairs at the Comedy Cellar.
Yeah.
So when you would just work on your new material during class, you're on stage, mic is on at the fucking Comedy Cellar.
Yeah, you're getting a feel for it.
Motherfucker, I was showing up to class fucking hour or 2 hours. I'd show up early every day. And then, so Rick and I start to get to know each other. So through some of my friends, we were writing sketches and doing stuff back then. And I had some video friends and director friends and such. So in my mind, the new season of Louie was about to happen. I was like, well, why don't we shoot some about Rick? Because I started hearing these stories about him. And I was just like, man, this guy's selling himself short.
Yeah, see, like I didn't know who he was.
Which happened, but the part of it is, it's like a lot of people, though. It's like there's a Rick at every club. I think,
exactly.
That's,
like
been around.
I looked at your trailer and I was hearing like the words that all these people are saying. You got fucking Bill Burr, Sarah Silverman, all these like huge name people that are speaking so highly of this guy, and it basically just seemed like that he was like one of like the real ones that never had that pop.
Right.
That never
it's
like,
just you know what it is? It's always just based on where the industry is at. Like whatever the litmus of the industry is, where if people are wondering, it's like, well, you got to understand, at one point, like when Letterman was like rocking shit, like in the early 90s, like if you were like a variety artist, like the irony is like Jimmy Fallon, like he wouldn't have been invited on Letterman to do stand-up.
No.
Like it was really very much like single, like microphone, deliver the fucking line. You know what I mean? It's like, so for Rick being like this multi-dimensional, guitar and piano and voices and all that, but just based on where the industry was at the time, that puzzle piece didn't
fit right then and there
into the, sort of where the industry was. So I just felt he was selling himself short. So we shot a couple things with him with the classes and whatever. And I go to Rick, I go, yo, it'd be nice. Like, who are your biggest name comics that you're best friends with? I just need 2 decent names. Colin Quinn was one of them.
Yeah.
And I think Nick DiPaolo was another. He goes, I go, can you please ask him? It's just Rick was so timid. He never thought anybody would have any interest in, being,
in his life.
And here's the deal too, is he hadn't been booked at the Comedy Cellar for like 4 or 5 years at that time.
Okay.
He was on Broadway. He'd been drinking a little bit too much when he got off Broadway when the show was over.
Yeah.
He came back and he just kind of stopped putting his avails into the club. And then next thing you know, he's not booked there anymore.
Yeah.
So for him to be teaching at the club, I mean, he was in a rough way at the time. So we got to know each other, like I said, and he just wouldn't ask any of the comics. So at this point with my job, I kind of, when I was at Spike, I was coming to a crossroads in my life where I'm like, I'm 31. Do I want to continue to work here? Do I want to take a shot at something? Whatever. I decided to quit my job and try to go freelance.
Can I pin this one? I have a quick question.
Yeah.
While you're at Spike, because you're into the Muay Thai and the martial arts and shit like that, were they doing the UFC shit then and there?
No, because when I was at Spike earlier on, because I was with them before they got sold, and it's still the Ultimate Fight, the Ultimate Fighter was on Spike. So we're just doing all the internet side of that shit.
Okay.
But then, eventually they did get sold. And then Bellator, because Bellator, eventually they bought Bellator.
Yeah.
And so just experience with both of those in that respect. And then I trained it once I moved to New York. I started training at Renzo Gracie's in Manhattan. And shout out to my boy Mike Levine. He's a brown belt under John Danaher. Who I interviewed there as well. And
John Danaher, you interviewed him?
Yeah. I was trying to pitch. I have a video online. I had some problems with the audio, but because like my buddy Mike, who's it was called 9 to Fight. And basically, John eventually, he even talks about in a little video piece I did is like, I mean, Mike's like trained with GSP, where you have these guys that are normal, run of the mill, like there's cops and all these people that have 9 to 5 jobs, but they will come into that gym and give every professional athlete a fucking run for their money.
Yeah, for sure.
And then part of it too is the title of the video that I made, the John one that I just did on YouTube. It still has like 100,000 views. It's called Control.
Okay.
So it's controlling the mats and controlling your life. It's very much like a chess game, but just talking to him the depths of that, of how
I bet
even if it's just breathing and you just all these things, but the control you find in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, he's definitely a big name in it.
Right. Yeah. And even he's so funny. It's like I treated him very much like a true, like if it was like my martial arts, like sensei kind of deal. Like I bought him 2 books after, like a proper Japanese how to pull a sword, how to properly pull a katana sword, and like a Sweet Science boxing, like an old New Yorker journalist. I treated him with a lot of respect. But so anyway, I had that experience, doing that as well when I was there. But I just eventually got to a point where I was just, I was in my yearly meeting with my boss, for your bonus and all that crap and your review. And he was like, well, you have to think, Dust, you want to be me in 5 years. Because he wanted me to be a mini version of him. And you could probably tell sitting down with me for 1 hour, it's like, motherfucker, I am who I am.
Yeah.
Like I'm not changing for anybody.
Yeah, for sure.
And I remember I took a breath to answer. He goes, you could take your time. And I go, no. I was like, I can fucking answer you right now. I go, I respect you, but I don't want to be you.
Yeah.
And I quit my job, a couple weeks after. And he was good to me when I left and how the exit shit went. And then from then on in, I just started going to the Olive Tree Cafe every day. It's attached to the Comedy Cellar. Yeah. Every day. I go there every day.
You were doing stand-up?
No, I was writing there every day, working out of that place every day.
Okay.
And that's those first months of not working there.
Yeah.
After like a month or two of doing that, there's also Rick's teaching there on the weekends. I'm hanging out with my friends, writing, doing stand-up, doing mics and
Absolutely. You're
stuff.
in that world.
In that world. And one day when I was there, at Olive Tree, I was about to leave for the day because I would usually leave before the rush. Because that's the thing is if you're not part of the club, like I'd be out of there by 6, 7 o'clock, like at the latest.
Yeah.
So basically one day, it's like in the afternoon on a Monday. I remember it was like 3 o'clock. Colin Quinn was there with somebody else. I think it was Keith Robinson just talking. So I walked out. I was leaving for the day. Went down to the block and I was standing on the corner for a second. And I go, Dustin, you got to go back. You got to take your shot, dude.
Yeah.
So I went back. I went up to Colin. I was like, yo, man, my name's Dustin. I'm trying to make this thing about Rick. He's too nervous to ask you to do an interview. Do you mind doing an interview? He's like, yeah, or here's my email, So he just had me, maybe confirm it with Rick, via email or whatever. But he did it. It took me like a couple weeks to get him.
Yeah.
But once this interview was happening and the things that were coming out of him, it was very much that it was like, oh, shit.
This is
much bigger than we thought it was.
Yeah, this is a dude with some shit.
Yeah, and it's also he had more history, than he was given credit. So at that point, things started to where I'm really good at this of stacking. Once I had Colin, I was able to go to like Jim Norton. And
Yeah,
once I
yeah.
had Jim and Colin, I could go to Colin or go to
There's
Ray
fucking
Romano.
Wanda Sykes, Ray Romano, all
Right,
these
but
fucking
it was piece
people.
by piece. It wasn't all at once. But the one thing I'm proud of is like 35 plus comedians. I booked everybody myself, man. Stand out the fucking Comedy Store for 2.5 hours. For,
Yeah, that's dope,
for
dude.
Bill Burr for days and days. You know, whatever it took.
Yeah, and I know it took some shit because like even like the
Got yelled at by Mark Maron. That was fun.
So how did that happen? You got yelled at trying to get him?
I had a funny story with Mark because like it's tough because I can't get too deep in it, but it's like because a chunk of the film is basically Rick was the co-MC to the founder of the Comedy Cellar. His name's Bill Grunfest, who's a buddy of mine. Shout out to Bill Grunfest.
Okay.
He founded the club. The club was a music venue. So the owner, the original owner, Manny Dorm, it was a music club in the 60s. There was like a coffee thing up, you know, the Cafe Fiend John, basically where the olive tree's at. There was a club upstairs.
Yeah.
Or there's a food and falafel and all that shit upstairs, but a music club because his dad was a musician.
Yeah.
But basically, there's also the Cafe Wada, which they owned and took over for a while. But in the early 80s, you know, they'd have some Brazilian stuff, but it was open for a minute. And this guy, Bill Grunfest, who founded, he's the first person to put Stephen Wright on stage.
Really?
Yeah, in Boston, came down, went into this place, sold his pitch like, hey, I want to do comedy shows here. And it kind of became a success overnight. I mean, still hustling, you know, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it was like a year went by. He needed a new co-MC on the piano, and that's how he met Rick. And then they became sort of like the mainstay deal. And that's when basically he gave Jon Stewart, you know, Bill gave Jon Stewart a start, or he discovered Jon Stewart, you can say. He gave Louis C.K. his start at the Comedy Cellar.
Wow.
So Bill eventually, I think around 1990, ended up moving to Los Angeles. He ended up being a writer on Mad About You for 7 years. And
okay.
went on. He's directed the Oscars, and I think, and you know, he directed 2 Richard Pryor, 1 documentary and 1 special for Comedy Central, and he's done the first sitcoms in China and Argentina, and you know, he's a very, very interesting
well-established guy.
Very interesting guy. But you know, throughout the process of making the movie, it was like I'm taking my shot. I'll take whatever. You know, before I would ever solicit a comp, before I'd ever ask anybody to do something, you know, I really would kind of like sit in my head like a role or a stand up of like, well, what am I saying to, you know, like Bill Burr was a good example where I had 1 shot. You know, you get 1 shot. I've always worked a lot of red carpets and stuff, so it's like you really just get 1 shot.
Yeah,
so
make
you gotta
it happen.
fucking make it count. Man.
Yeah.
And you know when you have somebody. The first time I talked to Bill, I knew. I was like, I didn't have him. But the second time, right at the tail end when I said something, I was like, I know you don't know Bill all that well. We'll talk about Manny, all this stuff. And that's when he finally looked at me. He's like, yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm like, don't worry. It's like that type of shit. But what ended up happening one night, I go to the Comedy Store, and in my mind, I was trying to get Bill and Rick on his podcast. I thought that would be really sweet to do.
On
that.
Mark's podcast.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'd heard some stuff that like him and Bill might have had a little something, and like I wasn't really sure, and I'm not going to get into all that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I didn't think much of it. And in my thing, it was an extra selling point to try to have Bill on the podcast because I got to be honest, at times if I was just selling Rick, it was like tough for them.
Absolutely.
Which I get that, you know. And I love Rick. I just, you know, I'm proud of what I, you know, did for him. And
Absolutely. But Mark Maron has
movie,
the fucking president on and shit like
right,
that.
and it's like, right, exactly. So, and I'm trying to, you know, respect Mark too.
Absolutely.
In terms of the thing.
Absolutely. It's understandable.
So I go to Mark, and I'll never forget it. I walk in the back of the Comedy Store, and I walk through, and he's watching a show in the original room from the back.
Yeah.
And his back's turned to me. I go, hey, Mark? And he goes, yeah. You know, kind of turns. And I was like, my name's Dustin. I'm making a documentary about Rick Crom. And then basically when I say, he goes, what's the deal with that? And he just starts walking me outside. He's like, I heard about that. What's the, you know, I don't really know Rick, blah, blah, blah. I was like, well, yeah, you know, I was thinking about maybe having like Bill, you know, Grunfest and Rick on the podcast. Man, you know, the second I said that, he fucking, you know, he just started kind of yelling, you know. He's like, man, fucking Bill Grunfest didn't do shit for me. And, you know, just really started going on.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
At the end of it, though, I will say, because in the moment, I'm just like, I don't know, you know, total blah, blah, blah. You know, and I was apologetic at the end. He was cool to me at the end. He's like, you know, man, he was like, I wish you owned your movie, but like, I got to pass. You know, at the end of the day, he was totally respectful about it.
That's
good.
good.
The way that I described the story, most people might be butthurt. He wasn't yelling at me. He was yelling at Bill.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I said he was yelling to a guy to the left.
He's an
and right
intense
of me.
guy.
He wasn't mad at me.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Maron is an intense guy.
He's by the way, in my life, like it didn't bother me, you know.
That's cool though.
So 2 weeks go by, and I was actually having brunch with Bill, or lunch, whatever, breakfast. And right as we sit down, I go, "Oh, I saw Maron, and I mentioned you." or whatever. And he goes, I'll stop you right there. You know, he didn't do shit for me and blah, 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 you know, whatever.
Yeah, so they got some shit.
It was only because I think early in his career of just the type of comic that Mark was very, you know, even Louis at the time, you know, like yelling at the audience and stuff like that. You know, Bill's a businessman. You know, it's like you have to build the business. So it's like from his perspective, I totally get it. Now, getting into my situation, which is interesting, and I, you know, Mark never responded to it, but 2 years later, I ran into him outside of the Comedy Store once my movie was finished, and we won the Audience Award at Doc NYC. He didn't even remember me, actually. I was like, hey, man, can I send you my movie? And he was like, yeah, sure. And he gave me his email. He was like, was I in it? He asked me that. And I go, no, I asked you to be in it, but you said no. But I was like so close to being like, well, yeah, you yelled at me, or Bill. But you know, the big ending of the movie was basically I was trying to put on a 25th anniversary show where Bill and Rick came back for the first time and did a reunion show. Yeah. And it started as a small thing. There's this guy, Mark Cohen, who was like an original mainstay there. He actually hosts, he's the main MC for their Vegas room now. Okay. The Comedy Cellar's Vegas room. And I flew out him and Alan Havey. Shout out to Alan Havey. He's on Mad Men and Billions and such. But the reason why I say that is because, so basically I was trying to piece together this show. Yeah. A week before the show, I was able to book Ray Romano. I was able to get a confirmation that Ray would do the show. Okay. So once I was able to do that, I was able to finagle Colin Quinn. And then from there, once people were in town for the show, once Bill was in town, I remember the night before the show, Louis, like I had all the waiters and waitresses like trying to help me out. Yeah, the waiters was like, yo, Louis is going to be here at 10. Yeah, it was like 9:30. Just some inside intel back on then, how to get there. Back then, dude, they'd lock the hallway down. Like Louis is the only guy, but they would like lock the hallway down basically. Yeah. So I fucking go to Bill Grunfest because we were hanging out, you know, at the club. I was like, Louis is going to be here at 10. I'm going to leave here at 9:55. You know what I'm saying? All I wanted him to do was tell him, like, yo, there's going to be a show here. Same thing, my homie, shout out to Rory Albanese, a comedian, worked for The Daily Show for a long time. You know, he was nice enough to send him the flyer for the show to possibly hit up Jon Stewart. Yeah. So long story short, the next night happened. The lineup for the show was Mark Cohen, Alan Havey, Colin Quinn, Ray Romano. Jon Stewart showed up, did his second set in 15 years. Louis showed up. Jesus. Greer Barnes did a set. But it was just like historically, they have monster shows there every fucking day. It was a Tuesday show. You could say that about the Comedy Cellar every day of the week. But the reason why I was so proud of it is because historically it was all the goats from that. Bobby Kelly spot said it because Rick was on the show or somebody was on his show the next week. He was like, Bobby was in the back of the hallway, and he was like a kid looking over. Yeah, trying to see it. Even Alan Havey said that to me. He was like, dude, I realized like we were part of something that was its own, thing. So, motherfucker, I was homeless, living on a pull-out couch in Astoria when this is happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? You could see that picture on my Instagram on the hallway. Yeah. And when Jon Stewart when Mark Cohen's up there singing, doing his thing with Rick on the piano. Is that the photo that's titled "The Best Day of My Life"? Yeah. Okay, so I have that written down, and like I wanted to know why that was the best day. The reason why was because during that moment, I told you how I flew Mark Cohen out. Yeah. Because having Jon Stewart and all those people were great, but I wanted to make it authentic. I wanted to make it real. And I remember I like cry thinking about it because it like, I did the best I could in that. Yeah, it's a big deal. Because also, too, to the Comedy Cellar, because the running joke was everybody thought, who's this fucking kid? He's trying to parlay this into a documentary about the Cellar, not Rick. Yeah. Where I really made it a point to be like, no, this is about Rick. Like even the edit of the movie, it's easy to like focus that part of the show on the talent. Yeah. It's like, well, no, it's about Rick. And I think a lot of, the bigger name people kind of felt that, were... Jim Norton used to say that, like, when are you going to get rid of Rick and make a documentary about the Comedy Cellar? Like, joking, but, maybe serious. So, during the show, when Cohen and fucking Rick are on there and they're crushing it. Yeah. Jon Stewart, it's in the movie. John, like, turns to everybody. He's like, wow, we're really doing a reunion show. And when he said that, I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Fuck. Everything you ever wanted. It was like Rocky at the top. I was like really just having that moment. Wow, that's heavy shit. I saw that you were on Bobby Kelly's podcast. Yeah. How now your experience in getting all these people, like how difficult was it to get all these big name people? Just piece by piece. I mean, I'm not going to say it was easy. I'm not going to say it was hard. It's just like it's like Ray Romano though. Like how do you get him to sign on?
Like, how did you even come in contact with him?
You know, Rick had known. Ray was one of those people that Rick again because he's original. You know, he's like
Yeah,
original.
yeah.
And I will say this though, really quick, is after that reunion show, because Rick in his fucking wildest dreams never thought that show would happen. He told me it was the greatest night up to that point of his professional career.
Yeah.
He hugged me after the show in my ear. He was like, it was all in your head, man. And for me to do that for him,
Yeah, that's incredible.
and he had started to sober up at that point.
That's great.
And after the movie, briefly, a couple months after the movie premiered, you got to understand that people had forgotten his historical value within the club.
Yeah.
So when my movie premiered at Doc NYC, it screened twice. The second day, I paid for all the staff at the Olive Tree. I gave them all tickets.
That's awesome.
Because there was one girl that didn't really like Rick there, because Rick doesn't pay for food there. Mandy, the original owner who passed, you know, some of those original guys, they don't.
They're grandfathered in.
Exactly, which deservingly, but there was one waitress there, like, you know, you always get stuff for free. The movie changed her perception. She goes, I love Rick.
Oh, wow.
So what ended up happening was, and I had kind of been pushing Rick to this point to basically, we had talked about it, you know, to put his avails back in.
Yeah.
So eventually in May, he put his avails back in. They gave him 2, you know, tough Friday night, Saturday night, first sets of the night. And he fucking killed, man.
Did well.
I'm about to cry because Rick is a fucking regular at the Cellar again.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible to watch that. I didn't watch the documentary, but I watched the trailer of who it was, and you know, as soon as I see all them names, I'm like, holy shit! Like, this is like this guy's a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
and I've never heard of him, and I'm a comedy fan, so I started to like actually like look at some of the shit that he's done, and I'm like, wow, like he's really,
it's like professionally, he's done Broadway, and he's written musicals. I mean, and the thing I was going to say though about getting him booked at the club, and again, as far as like being a producer and like what I did for the project,
yeah.
I mean, he said it to me right. I can tell you, like right after, because here's what was interesting. When he stopped doing comedy at the Cellar at the time, they looked at his act as being like old and whatever.
Yeah.
The thing is, nowadays nobody wants to go into a comedy club and listen to political material.
Yeah, because
they get too much of it in their real life.
Yeah, it's every day.
Rick is an entertainer, so when you're going down there, this motherfucker's doing a song called "I Poppy C" about his gay lover and shit. You're like, it's like a fucking
it's a break. It's a break from it.
Shit, exactly. So that was kind of unexpected. So. For me, you got to understand, for him as a performer and like that cloud that was hanging over him, and he got to perform in Vegas, that was a whole other thing. He even said it to me right after. He was like, even, you know, with our movie and whatever, he said, he was like, it's a weight has been lifted off of me. You know, so in terms of like, and he basically told me, he was like, you were the one who pushed me to do it, you know?
Now, what's it like getting your film in these different like these different festivals and shit like that?
It's tough out there, man. I mean,
did you have to shop it yourself? Or?
Kind of. It's through contacts and whatever. I mean, I got to be honest, if I'm speaking matter-of-factly, to be honest, I think the film festival situation right now is a little shitty.
Yeah.
Because if you start looking at some of the major festivals, if you're a truly independent filmmaker, it's fucking impossible to be able to compete.
Yeah.
How the fuck can I compete with these like majorly fun, but like festivals that shouldn't be, you know, in terms of like the opening films? It's just, again, I probably sound like a bitch, but you know, these are just huge movies that have huge budgets.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
Real production companies.
That's why I was curious.
You know, this isn't even Reservoir Dogs or even Pulp Fiction. You know, these are Amazon features, Netflix. I mean, these are
that they're
major
spending that have
now.
a lot of production value. That's why I was curious, because like I
did it all myself.
Can you say like how much this cost you to make?
Well, it is a little complicated with partners and all this shit, but
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it was a lot of money. I mean,
Okay, yeah. So
you know what really kills you? The two things are, basically, we're blessed with my co-producers, our editor and DP, and I have a partner as like my other co-director. It was everybody worked for free up until you got, in terms of mixing and color correcting, we had to pay a house to do that, which is very expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other thing is clip clearances for film festivals.
Oh, okay.
So if he's on, Rick's on Chappelle's show. That's $1,000.
Oh yeah, well, he's
That's
a doctor.
$1,000 right there.
I saw that right there.
He's on Tonight Show. Or, we have Tonight Show shit in the film. That's $1,000.
Really?
So all those things, but it's also different to screen it to clear it a year for film festival screenings.
Yeah.
In the hope that a distributor comes and says, okay, great. How much does it cost to, it's $50,000 for all worldwide perpetuity for all the music and all the video in the film. Okay, great. I'll buy your film for $100,000.
I never even thought about that as far as like having to pay to be able to use the clips and shit like that.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, because
especially if it's a feature.
Because it's owned by the Comedy Central owns Chappelle Show clips, right?
So I have to go to Viacom and be like, and fuck, they suck, man. They milk every fucking penny.
That's insane.
So it's $1,000 for film festivals. For his, you also have to pay union fees. So
Now-
like he's on Louis' show that has like DePaulo, Jim Norton, all these people. Do you know how much that fucking clip costs, dude? It's $11,000 just for the clip, and then I have to pay union fees, which is like another
Jesus
fucking like
Christ.
$8,000. So it just gets into this whole shit, where you're trying to play with the big boys, and I
Now,
may sound like,
realistically, what is the goal with it though? Like, if you're putting all this money and time and
Yeah.
everything into a documentary like this,
that's
are
where
you
I fucked up. Yeah,
are you
fucked up.
hoping?
I just
like-
want to get it. I just wanted to get it out there. My
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
is to break even, honestly.
Yeah.
But then what happened was, so my movie premiered on November 12th, 2017. Basically, I was I was there on a Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
Working at the Olive Tree leading up to the thing, getting ready, and the news broke about Louis C.K.
Oh shit! When did that happen? That happened a couple days.
A couple days before, literally before the premiere.
Fuck.
So that became a scramble. Officially was like, oh, it's not that bad. And then then it really hit.
Oh, it was fucked.
Because Louis, like I said, Rick's, we use that scene in the film. It
Yeah.
takes place at the Comedy Cellar. The big ending of the movie, all this shit. It's like Louis not in it, but he's in it. You know what I mean? His brand, the combination of Louis and the Cellar as its own brand,
Dude.
that in itself would have sold my movie. You know what I'm saying? I could have sold my movie probably off of that alone.
Louis was just in Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
I ended up getting tickets to it, and I went to see him. And while I was out, it sold out immediately. Obviously, there was lines wrapped around the building, and I was standing there, and a guy from the Post Gazette came up and asked me to give a statement about why I wanted to come see it. And it's incredible, how insane that whole situation is.
And it's an impossibility to rationalize and come out with
Yeah.
a clear
It's
take on it
fucked up.
without.
That guy wanted a statement from me, and I was like, "No, dude, I can't right now." Because weird enough, I asked that guy to interview him like a week beforehand because he was the one that was doing all the press for Louis C.K. So I was like, "I'd love to know your side of you dealing with people lighting your posts on fire about him being, whatever he is."
Yeah.
But I'm also a fan of comedy, dude. I don't agree with what he did, but I agree. But I wanted to see him as a fact of seeing a great comedian and how he comes back from something like this. Right. And I went to see him, and it was it's insane. Like the severity of what he did, and how he is kind of adapting to this whole trajectory of his life. It's wild to me.
I mean, for me myself, that's what was so tough because it's I have my feelings about what he did.
Yeah.
But in the same respect, it's like
you also have to know what his legacy was before this right here.
Dude, that reunion show now, in hindsight, when I think about it, it was weird because it was this little bubble that was a time that will never be again in a lot of respects.
Yeah, it can never be again.
It will never be again. So it's. Now look for myself of the worst timing ever. Like I said, my movie premiered on my birthday. His movie didn't come out that weekend. He had to give $6 million back to the studio and whatever.
Which ain't shit to him.
Yeah, but it still was.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a lot of money.
You're getting hit. I mean, he said it was. He lost in 24 hours.
Well,
I guess he probably lost up to. And people probably think that I'm exaggerating. I bet you he lost
$20 million with everything.
35 easy.
Because what we were talking about, or not what we were talking about, but what he was talking about during his set, he was like. He did not hold back whatsoever. I was really curious to know, to see how he was going to do it. But his, you could tell his openers were Tony Woods and Lynn Koplitz. And Tony Woods was, he's hilarious. Lynn Koplitz just doesn't give a fuck. And you're like, oh, a woman's opening for him. I wonder, this whole situation of this tour. But while he was talking about all this shit, he was like, "Oh, they took away everything from me. What the fuck are they going to take away my birthday too?"
Yeah.
Just saying that is I can't go any lower than I am now. That's why he was pretty vulgar and pretty the same way he always was.
I'll tell you personally, look, I'm a nothing burger on the radar of whatever. It's I realize, I totally understand because I could tell you over the blowback of what I had to deal with.
Yeah.
After that. Was now looking back on it,
that directly affected it though.
Yeah, because at the time people were like, "You really think?" And it's I felt a little bit justified after he came back to perform for the first time.
Yeah,
of seeing because it was worse than the first explosion.
Absolutely.
In terms of so for example, my movie, like I said, we won the audience award. Amazon reached out for my movie right away.
Yeah.
So did Comedy Central, and they passed on the film. In my opinion. Who is going to buy a movie and go to their boss like, yo, we just bought this movie for $150,000. Just so you know, Louis in it, though. No big deal.
Yeah.
And you just paid for this movie? I just don't think anybody was going to take that. And he, like I said, him being on the scene. And with the Cellar, and then, Noam Dorman, who is awesome, the owner of the Comedy Cellar, he started getting a lot of light during that second go-round because he was the only one doing press. So who fucking knows if these things add up? So the thing that was nuts is in 2018, I knew in my heart, I felt that I wasn't going to find distribution for the film.
Yeah.
But I had to go and take these last swings. A juror reached out from a film festival in Cape Cod over the last summer. He loved the movie. He's found distribution for over 100 independent features and documentaries.
Yeah.
Ironically, we met literally the same week that Louis came back for the first time to perform. He went out to 15 outlets from Amazon to fucking whoever, Netflix, and everybody passed on the movie.
Yeah.
My movie is not perfect. There are bumps and, there's bumps and bruises.
For sure,
I did the
dude.
best I fucking could.
Yeah.
But I still feel it deserves a home in some respects. But at that point, again, I did everything I could.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've expended. I can't tell you. I broke on a level that I can't even say. You know what I mean? But again, I'm proud of what I did and what I accomplished. But yeah, the Louis thing, it's hard for me to put into words because I experienced actually what he experienced. I mean, I didn't experience like I can't go out in public type shit.
Yeah, but you had a little bit of a.
But I tasted the toxicity that was on him
of how insane that could be and how overwhelming.
Totally. Where there was nothing I could do. That toxicity infiltrated everything where it was like I couldn't get off, it just was nuts too of like going where something was so valuable and was injecting so much value. Because you even said, I knew going into this, nobody knew Rick. So in my mind, I go, what if I have 5 minutes and 17 seconds of Ray Romano, 2 minutes and 13 seconds of Jon Stewart, a minute and a half of Bill Burr to build around Rick so they focus on Rick.
Yeah, it absolutely shows that he's a credible name. Like if you had a bunch of people in there that no one knows of, you're like, no one knows of these people.
But I'm trying to build that value around him. Yeah. So I felt by the end I had built up enough, value to sell this movie.
Yeah, and it's not like you're being like you're just like red herrings. It's like these people that actually like really like have seen what he's done and like the moves that he's made growing up and coming through that world, which is crazy to me. It's definitely interesting.
Yeah, and with all that value around him, it was just nuts to kind of see it get. Louis actually, it was the counter. It was like the bizarro version of that. So. Yeah. I'm not here, playing the fucking, victim or whatever.
No, but it's interesting to hear your trials and tribulations with that stuff.
And there's personal shit in the movie of like whatever, there's obviously some crazy personal shit that goes into, making a movie and how things can change and egos and all this shit.
Now, could I ask, while you were living and like kind of in that world of the Comedy Cellar, what was it like whenever Louis' shit broke? Because he was definitely like a pivotal. He's like if Rogan goes to the Comedy Store, like he's the OG that's like there.
I mean, I was only there for the first like week or so when it happened. Because again, I was just there when it happened. I
feel like comedians. The reason I ask that is because like there's comedians that speak about what he did being fucked up and like obviously it was wrong, but like they're comedians. They know that like that. I don't know. It's interesting to hear their input on what it is.
I totally understand what you're saying. I think some of the comedians, like personally, like I'm sure some of them, had their thoughts, like in a negative, not negative, but looking really down, whatever, down on him. My take on it is, I think, and when I say the world, me being more in that world, a large part of it's like more of like the club itself.
Yeah.
Like I know Noam and Liz, who manages the place, and a lot of the other managers there are like my homies, are just like some of the
Esty still there?
Esty's still there. And I would say I love Esty. I had to book that show, that reunion show with Esty, which I will say I booked a show with her, even though Esty's the one who booked it for sure. But Esty's my homie too, and I just have a level of loyalty to them that I can't put into words.
Yeah,
based on the sheer fact that even from their branding or whatever, like Noam let me go into his house 2 times, go into his attic of tapes, all his Comedy Cellar archive tapes. He's never let anybody do that ever. Nobody's ever done that.
That's insane.
I'm a very loyal person. It's not about money with me. It's about that level of loyalty. I was like, dude, I got your fucking back.
Yeah, anything you need.
And dude, that's the thing. They've done that for their performers forever. There's a 2-drink maximum at that club for a reason.
Yeah.
They protect their performers.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
a family. The same shit I just told you about Rick making his dad being like, Rick doesn't pay. These certain people don't pay. It's a family.
It's interesting because like I listen to all these podcasts nowadays with like my wheelhouse is like Rogan, Burt Kreischer, Ari, Segura, and those two guys are all like their home is the Comedy Store.
Right.
So I feel like some sort of connection to that. I feel like that I know like the lore of it and everything.
Right.
And I recently just had exposed. I just got exposed to the Comedy Cellar through the TV show Crashing with Pete Holmes.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, I know that like there's obviously that world there where you got like Attell and like all these like goats, Artie Lang and everything like that.
Yep.
So
The ghost of Patrice is up in there too.
yeah, I mean Patrice and Neil. I wish that I was able to like see.
You remember a
witness
show
him.
that he had a show called Web Junk on VH1?
I
It
remember
was the original
title.
Tosh.0. It was iFilms Web Junk 20. It was from our website. I pulled a lot of
shit.
those videos, dude.
That's insane.
So it's funny how, and then I eventually interviewed Bill Burr on the red carpet years later. It was when the Philadelphia incident first happened. I can't remember.
That was nuts.
He was in some movie with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. I can't remember, but here's all I can say though, from my perspective, is when I say this family.
Yeah.
They're the first club ever to give food spots. So we're younger comics when they would come in that wouldn't get paid for check spots or whatever it was.
Yeah, they give them free food.
They give them free food. You're creating a family atmosphere.
Yeah.
You're creating a unique family atmosphere.
Wow.
So if one of your kids jerks off in front of some women,
Yeah.
are you going to disown your child?
That's a
I'm
good-
not, again, what you know what I'm saying right now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not fucking justifying anything
No,
that
no,
what
no.
he did.
I get it.
But like, if my brother did some fucked up shit,
It's-
he's my, and again, I'm not letting Louis off the hook at all, but
No,
it's like,
no,
how
no.
do you expect somebody to react?
And
if
that's
you're
what's
family?
fucked up about living in this world. It's like people will, no matter what, there's going to be someone that's going to fault you and find a fucked up way for you saying what you did. But realistically, just
That's
like you said,
everything. No, but that's our problem. It's like,
and the comedians are fucked up. Comedians are fucked up people. Like
that's why it's so funny. People like Pete Holmes, it's like kind of
Yeah.
funny to me because there's like it's such this like
he's
bubble gum.
he's like the minority of that world,
Right.
though. It's like all these comedians talk about how fucked up their childhood was growing up and everything.
Well,
And-
we're also living in a new era of
Yeah.
comedy palettes.
Yeah,
there's
it's
pre-Netflix and post-Netflix.
yeah, it's new for sure.
It's very much where like the palette of people past they know who Louis is. When I
Absolutely.
first heard him, like, dog, and I know a lot of people have said this a million times. It's like, go listen to his fucking material. I mean, you knew who the guy was. You know what I mean? He would openly say like, I'm a curmudgeon. I'm
Yeah.
a fucking piece of shit, whatever.
Yeah, it was wild.
But I just feel like a part of it too is like this new people coming into comedy.
Absolutely.
That just in their lives. I mean, I think part of it's like your upbringing and like your sensitivities to not
Absolutely.
being, not being
Like,
around certain shit.
Comedy nowadays is way more sensitive and fragile compared to what it was whenever like Richard Pryor and shit like that, like hearing
Beating his wives.
yeah,
and
like
fucking whatever,
hearing all this
I
shit.
mean,
It's like you said, it's a different palette. That's a good way to describe it. Now, what's your your exposure with comedy? You doing stand up? What how did you feel with that? Did you have
it was interesting because the movie kind of took energy from that.
Yeah.
I think early on of like who I was and the things I was talking about because I did a lot of racial humor. And
Yeah.
especially like growing up, man, coming back to Pittsburgh, being a tall, goofy looking hipster.
Yeah, for sure.
Wearing the
Especially,
shit I would
mean,
wear.
going to Taylor Alderdice and shit. Like,
And dude, I'm talking about like imagine coming back here in like 2001, looking like that in the South Side. I had shit thrown at me, faggot
Absolutely.
this, blah blah blah. That's why it was therapeutic for me to help Rick because we have a fairly large gay section of the film.
yeah,
We're getting into that scene on Louis, and and I'm not gay, but I've had that shit thrown at me my whole life, as
Yeah,
in
yeah.
like to what that feels like, So even for myself, I was like happy to, experience that. So I think in aspects of like my material of talking about certain things, a lot of hip hop shit, whatever.
absolutely.
I think that's why like I still want to do stand up again. I still think I need to do it, but it was just like, I still think it takes some time to find your voice and
For sure.
who you are. But it's the best way I can describe stand up. Even sometimes with like my friends, like talking about like William. Shout out to my boy William Montgomery on Kill Tony. Shout out to Malcolm Hatchet. I talked to William. I think I was there for his second set on Kill Tony.
Okay.
And we were like hanging out the whole night, and I was like with him when he got called up because he didn't know he was getting called up and whatever. So we're outside right after. It was ironic. We had this conversation right before we went on. I was like, well, I've always equated stand up to surfing.
Yeah.
No set is ever the same because every wave is different.
Yeah, you
Every
gotta learn
audience
how to
is
ride
totally
them
fucking
waves,
different.
though.
Dude, I was at the Stand one night in New York. I did a set on a Tuesday. I fucking killed, dude. Killed.
Yeah.
It was the best set I ever had in my life. I come back on Thursday, did the same exact set the same way. I fucking died.
Bombed, yeah.
This young kid goes up there. He's like 21 or whatever. Destroyed. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Well, it turned out to be Pete Davidson, but it was like, but at the time, I'm like, this guy's more mature than I am inside this club, and I'm more mature than him outside the fucking club.
It's definitely wild.
But it's a bit, I was going to say is when William got off stage, I remember he's like kind of I could see he was a little bit in his head and a little bit nervous. I go, dog, you rode the wave. Don't look back on the wave.
Yeah,
Just get
for
ready.
sure.
Look at the waves that are coming in.
Yeah,
And it sounds cheesy, but it's like that's the way.
For sure it is. You could tell a different way it feels like. I'm like, whenever I say this, like I'm no expert at all. I've only done it a few times, but from I've been up 6 times. The first time it was great. Like I killed it. It was great. Second week though, it was just like the audience felt different. Like it just felt. It felt
you get a certain group
rough.
of people. It's like it can just be you say the wrong joke. I used to have this joke. I was trying to set up this juxtaposition of, because obviously being a white guy listening to hip hop a lot of my life, I used to get called out all the time. Like, what you know about this and blah blah blah. Which is fine. It is what it is. So I was just trying to find this juxtaposition of like now that there were black hipsters at the time of like me calling out a black hipster like what you know about cold pressed juices and fucking that type of shit.
That's a funny premise for
vintage,
sure.
Whatever the fuck, and
that's definitely a funny premise.
And so it's me going through that in my head, seeing a dude, and like I go right up to, I was like, "Yo, dog," and then I look down, and I was like, "Are those the new Toms?" You know, and he's just like, "Yeah, man, like fucking David Byrne special edition or some shit like that." But at the time, though, setting that up was a really
rough.
Like even using the term black hipster, you know what I mean? It was like everybody's sensitive. I had a joke about Wu-Tang's, basically talking about I love Wu-Tang's my favorite rap group of all time. But when I went back and listened to 36 Chambers, I actually realized that most of Wu-Tang Clan were in the closet. And I'm like, if you don't believe me, go back and listen to the skit Torture, where they're talking about they get so detailed, lyrically fucking a dude up, that it kind of turns a little gay, where Method Man's like, "Hey, yo, son, I'm gonna tie your asshole closed and keep feeding you and feeding you and feeding you." I'm like, "Damn, Method Man, you know how to sew, dog, for real?" Like that is a lot of time cooking next to another man's butthole. And then like Raekwon's like, "Hey, yo, dog, I'm gonna put your nuts on the dresser, right? Just your nuts." I'm like, "Do you realize what it takes to put just a grown man's nuts on the dresser? Like, let me move your big ass dick out of the way before I smash that shit with a rusty screwdriver." Blow. But then after I did later that, I'm like, well, how about on the next Wu-Tang album, they do gay torture. And it's like, "Hey, yo, son, hey, yo, I'm going to become best friends with your girlfriend, right? So much so that we got to hang out during social functions and shit. I'm going to see you, make, awkward physical contact. And then eventually we're going to get too drunk and I'm going to try to get you and your girlfriend to experiment sexually. Gay torture, son, that shit." Wait, what was I got to tell you the last one. It was like, oh my God. Yeah, there was like, what was it? I was like, hey, yo, son, gay torture, son, gay torture. I was like, "Hey, yo, I'm going to pick you up, right, in a limousine. I'm going to take you there, give you champagne, whatever. I'm going to take you to the theater. And then when Wicked starts, I ain't going to let you watch that shit. Gay torture, son, gay torture." So it was like that. But setting that joke up to the gay side of it was a tough,
like walking on eggshells kind of to see how people were going to respond to it.
Sorry if that was long-winded. But
no, that's all right. That's all right. I don't give a fuck about this. I'll go for whatever.
All right, cool.
We got how it is. Now, I have a question. You have a photo with you meeting Clancy Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Now, could I ask how that is? Because he
was awesome.
Yeah, like, how did you come across meeting him?
Well, here's the thing, too.
For people who don't know who Clancy Brown is, he was the head security guard in Shawshank. He was the stepdad, dickhead cop in Pet Sematary.
He's the Kurgan in Highlander.
Yeah, Kurgan. I'm not even going to pretend like I know what that is because I didn't watch Highlander.
It's Highlander. He's like the bad guy in the Highlander. So I work I've worked for this guy named Jeff Keighley. He's kind of like the Dick Clark of the video game industry, does the Game Awards.
Okay.
A bunch of stuff for E3. These days, I don't take that many pictures with talent anymore. It's only, I used to say this too, I learned my lesson working the red carpet. You never bring anything personal. If something is, I always said, if something organic happens, like recently, like, I've had like Willem Dafoe come up, and I've had these things like I had just watched his first movie, where I was like, "Oh man, I just watched The Young Ones," which was actually it was Catherine Bigelow's first movie, directed like Hurt Locker and stuff. If it's something happened recently and it was organic, I would say it, and things would happen naturally from there. But if it's I met you through my friend this one time, and trying to do that,
if you're trying to reach,
it always backfires because you're bringing something personal. You're there to do a job.
Yeah.
So I rarely do that. So when Clancy came, I was working E3 and we were doing this event, and he's in the Lego, I think it's like the Lego supervillains game or something.
Oh, okay.
He's like the Joker or something like that. So for this show that I work, they do with Jeff, it's a live stream of interviews where they bring people from the entertainment industry and people from the gaming industry together.
Yeah.
So it'll be like Darren Aronofsky and like Hideo Kojima, or like
That's wild as hell.
or like I was saying, Joe Russo and Donald Mustard, who's the CEO of Epic Games.
Yeah.
So it is this very like future forward type shit. So he was just there with all the people from the Lego game.
I loved him ever since Shawshank. That's why I had to ask about it.
The nicest guy. So he does his thing, get him to stage, totally cool. So by the end, we were like hamming it up. He was a good dude.
Yeah.
And they were about to leave. I was like, I never do this. I rarely do this. But I was like, do you mind if I get a picture really quick? He goes, sure. And at the end, his wife was there too. And I go, and look, I know a lot of people say the Kurgan and all this shit, but I was like, dog, Bad Boys. And he goes, motherfucker, he goes, you weren't even fucking alive. And I know what you're thinking right now. You go, he wasn't in Bad Boys, but I'm not talking about.
I knew it was not that.
There's a 1982, 83 version, I think, or maybe 81, but with Sean Penn called Bad Boys.
Okay.
He's this kid. He accidentally kills Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Ali Sheedy's in it. He kills his buddy on a fucking like robbing going wrong, and it's kind of he goes to this like juvenile jail.
Don't tell me the end of this because I'll watch it.
Dude, the movie is my shit, dude.
Bad
My brother
Boys.
and dude, that movie is our shit.
Bad Boys.
And Bad Boys, and Clancy Brown's
Man.
in it, and that movie is like. I will say it again. That movie is my shit. And when I
weird?
said that to him, it was so funny. He was like, you weren't even fucking born. I'm like, you don't understand. I told him, I was like, my brother and I, that movie is my shit. And
Sean, I just saw Sean Penn randomly. I just started watching all the Viva La Bams again.
Oh, yeah.
Sean Penn randomly showed up in an episode. I was like, what the fuck? I forgot all about
that's
this.
so funny.
Sean Penn, an interesting dude.
Yeah, so, it's been, man, like I said, it's been
It's
kind
a
of.
wild ride for you, I
Yeah,
feel.
and then coming back to New York, to Pittsburgh now, I mean, truthfully, it's like I kind of had nowhere else to go in certain ways. I had kind of hit like rock bottom just financially and just kind of drained. But
So-
on the side, I always said it's like the hardest to. I knew the hardest step was going to be to take that next step.
Yeah, for sure.
Off the sinking ship or whatever the ship was that was my movie.
Yeah.
Into this next thing, which is comic routines, which is that thing I've been doing with Malcolm and some other people, which is just this small thing that I just had the idea of like, talking about trying to just focus in on kind of what people do off stage, but, vignetted and trying to do younger comics and, shit like that. And
Just make a different creative platform for it.
I just wanted to work on something. I'm a big proponent of just finish something.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
matter what it is. Just finish it,
So what your next move is to just keep building this up.
So I'm going to do this on the side, even just now. Like even this week, I got production work here in Pittsburgh that went really well, and then like I'm doing a little gig for Epic Games in San Francisco for a week, some freelance shit.
That's awesome.
I got
dude.
picked up for something for YouTube for E3, and I'm just going to keep grinding, man. I got this Pittsburgh idea in the back of my head here. Like even shout out to Dylan. I feel like we might be able to do some cool stuff together.
Yeah,
I just
man.
feel like I have a particular set of skills.
Dylan Rosgone photography. Dylan
Dude.
_4_real. He's definitely doing
Big
wild shit in
shout
the
out. I
city.
mean, what a good dude, So I just, I feel like I have a particular set of skills that I can bring
Liam Neeson.
to Pittsburgh. I just definitely, you know what I mean? Definitely. I will find you. I feel like, yeah, I can. And also too, like, I used to always think I would be depressed if I moved back or whatever. I'm proud because I'm not, it's like Bob Marley, dog. My riches is life.
Yeah.
My riches is life forever. It's not about money.
Yeah, you've had a lot of experiences, like,
And I think that keeps me. And I did want to tell you to come full circle to the beginning of this conversation that I was telling you about my Minios story. Is I was in Minios like 6 years after that.
Yeah.
And I was living in Hollywood or Fountain and Vine, which is right in the middle of Hollywood. And I was in Aiello's, and I was with my boy. Shout out to Josh Tanzer, one of my best friends, who actually hooked me up with this gig I just got. One of my best friends, and I hear a dude go, Dustin Sussman. It was a dude mopping the floors at Aiello's, and I'm not knocking him, but he had like meth sores on his face, and like we're just, he's like, he was like, how's it going? I'm like, good. How you doing, man? He's like, oh, my baby mama's dad hates me. And
yeah.
he just was in it, you know what I mean, with this mop in his hand. He's like, where are you living? And I was trying to be vague about the shit I was doing with my life because I was knee-deep with the Spike stuff and going to South by and Comic-Con and, all this shit and kind of riding that wave, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And he was like, where are you living? I'm like, L.A. He's like, where in L.A.? I'm like, well, Hollywood, And I remember he, like, leaned his chin on that fucking mop top head, at the top handle. And he's like, wow, Hollywood, just kind of thing. And I just, in this moment, it was kind of one of those things that, like, I saw the possibility, like I told you, of like what could have been.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking him. I had this happen because I told this story to some fucking actor, comic dude in LA once. This actually happened not too long ago. And he basically started giving me shit for saying that I'm shitting on that guy and that job. And dog, my family's blue collar to the fucking max.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying I just didn't want to end up like my mother. I just would have had no control over myself. I just felt like that toxicity would have just infiltrated my fucking being. I wouldn't have been giving my chance to fucking breathe life, to go back what we were talking about that girl on the train, where I'm like, yo, like, you don't know who you are yet. I'm not, the same thing with my boy John being like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow at Minio's. I'm like, hold up. This ain't gonna be my life. Like, I can't hold on. You know what I mean? Because next thing you know, that's how it starts.
Yeah.
Next thing you know,
it's easy to get
it's
stuck.
fucking 15 years later.
It's easy to get stuck.
And the dude I'm talking about 2 years ago, I swear to God, dude, on Facebook, because he ended up just jumping around and whatever. He posts on Facebook on his fucking birthday, man, really wish I had somebody to have a drink with, and posts his phone number. Nobody liked it or commented. I jumped into that motherfucker. I was like, yo, man, if I was there, dude, I'd have a drink with you right now. So then, of course, once I did it, everybody starts jumping in. And then what was so nuts about it was the next day he messaged everybody, like individual, like basically a group message, and he put up like $25,000 on GoFundMe for his teeth. He needed to get his teeth fixed. So it's obviously kind of lost his mind, and I felt really bad for him.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not shitting on him. All I'm saying, I'm just bringing the story full circle, is just that, me personally, I just...
Could have been worse.
Could have been, but, I that's why I kept saying he was so smart. Like, John, I almost said his name, but he just didn't even give him, he didn't even give himself the chance to breathe.
Yeah.
It's like you're a flower and you didn't even see the sun yet.
Absolutely.
So it sounds hokey, but and I'm not shitting on it. You could be a great pizza maker.
Yeah.
But maybe go have your own pizza place. Put your energy into your own bucket. You know? So
absolutely, dude.
Anyway, so that was sort of my take on it, of, coming full circle in that respect, coming back here, that like, I definitely couldn't have moved back to Squirrel Hill. I have to personally. It sounds weird, but I just have a lot of pain associated with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's even part of this little show. Because I have connections. I premiered Wiz Khalifa's first music video, Pittsburgh Sound at the time, and I knew kind of the guys that fairly well that started Rodstrom Records, and kind of seeing that from whatever perspective, that was sort of an interesting thing.
That's pretty wild
to see. Yeah, not that I'm like so close to that word, but I know all. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
just like
know all these
experiences
people.
growing up.
Yeah. I mean, I saw Wiz randomly on the street in LA once, and was just like, oh yeah, because like one of the people, like the main person that like funded their label, like his wife, we went to semi-prom together and like really tight.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. You know what I mean? It's like
weird disconnects.
Exactly. So
that's
my
nuts,
boy
man.
my boy Zach used to babysit Mac, and we went to his first show together in LA, and that type of stuff.
That's nuts. I saw that you had a post of you were at a Mac Miller tribute. You were at that Mac Miller tribute.
My boy Jason DeBiase, so I told you about that Wonder Boy story with Rob Downey Jr. He still freelances for Rodstrom. He cut that video.
Oh yeah.
So we went to the Christmas party, and
it's a shame, dude.
I got to be real. I got to be real straight up about that whole thing. Even from an outside perspective, when I hear him talk, because he went to Emma Kaufman camp too, and
yeah.
I mean, you hear pieces of yourself in there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, like,
because growing up where you grew up, you went to the same high school, you grew up off of the same shit.
I'm sure even more. Like you, I'm sure you have a different connection with it.
It's weird to me, and I'm not saying I'm anything. I'm a fly. I have no ego, dude. I'm a nobody.
Yeah,
I don't give a fuck. But my thing is that fucking kid died in a mansion, in a big house in Studio City by himself. Ironically, that's the last place I was living, was in Studio City, where Wiz also lives.
Yeah.
And I'm about to do something unprecedented right now, and I probably shouldn't say it, but like, I fell off with Wiz. I got to be straight up. I'm personally not feeling him anymore.
That's all right.
For two reasons. One was after Mac passed.
Yeah.
Because he's posting I'm hungover shit and whatever. And then the second thing was after the shootings in Squirrel Hill.
Yeah.
Where I'm not saying you have to get political, because he's notoriously anti-political.
Absolutely.
Dog, I get that. You know what I mean? It's a community in which you
have a voice.
You went to high school there. The dudes that helped fund you and your career. And again, I'm not saying you owe. No,
I get it.
It was a combination that he just lives in his bubble, and I get it, and it's all good. You've been rapping about the same shit for. I think
a lot of
years.
that, what it is he's in a bubble out there.
He's in a bubble, and I get it, and I'm not trying to hate. You know what I mean? But it's just me, as my perspective. Sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone and go. You know what? again, it's his bubble that makes his lens not understand maybe that sensitivity.
Absolutely.
Because me coming from that addict shit and going to NA meetings with my mom and when I was 13, you know what I'm saying? That type of shit, it broke my heart seeing that happen. I get emotional saying it right now.
Yeah.
Even the stories you hear me saying, the shit that I tried to avoid, which I've been lucky enough, like I said, with my best friend dying, I thought that was supposed to be me, man.
Yeah.
So seeing this fucking kid die who was grown in our community, it kills me, you know? And,
Yeah,
it was
it's
never
fucked up,
spoke
dude.
about. It's all like, oh, he's gone, but he left us his music. Yeah, that's great. I love that too, but it's just like, it kills me. I'm not saying we have to step backwards of like
Such a bright flame.
how
just,
it
like,
happened. Yeah, but
burnt
it's
out.
like, none of y'all are saying shit. Who enabled him? You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Anyway, so again, it's none of my business, but of my personal take on the whole thing.
Absolutely.
That part of it, you know, and even, yeah, so that part of it, you know, what's funny is this kid follows me on Instagram, and sometimes I have some old campers from Emma Kaufman camp that I don't even know who they are.
Yeah.
I had a notorious New Year's party in 1999 to 2000.
Yeah.
In my grandparents' crib. I had like 250 people in my house.
Jesus.
I've had kids that were freshmen at the time come up to me and party, you know, like years later, be like, you're Dustin Sussman, I was at your party. I don't even know who the fuck they are. So, same thing kind of with some of my campers. So when Mac died, there was some kid, you know, a kid that I follow was on there.
Yeah.
Because at some point when I'm looking through and he's with Mac at EKC, I was like, hold up. I was like, was I his fucking counselor? Was I Mac's counselor and I didn't know it? Which I don't think I was. But when I saw that fucking picture of Mac, because he was real young at the time, I get chills thinking about it now. Because I went to Emma Kaufman, you know, I went there for 9-10 years. My grandfather went to that fucking camp.
Yeah.
So
that's
it's
a whole
like,
other connection, different connection.
but it's a different, it just takes it to this like other thing, you know? So it's, yeah,
wild life.
I did not know him at all. I'm not saying but it's like this. It's like I didn't know him.
Yeah, but you still got a different
you feel
connection.
like a lot of people listen to this that
Absolutely,
grew up in the
dude.
community. Even if you're from Pittsburgh, man. When
Yeah.
he was up there, y'all were up there. I always said the reason why Mac was so successful, in my opinion, was a lot of fans because he's such a down-to-earth dude. You could actually see yourself in his shoes.
Yeah.
So you wanted to see him succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame that he's gone.
Yeah.
I
But I don't mean to shit on Wiz. It's just that
No. So I mean,
how many more songs? Look, dog, I know you like to party. How many more fucking songs do I got to hear about champagne and fucking blunts and whatever the fuck? You
Yeah.
can say I'm fucking hating, but it's just like, you know, I know you're in shape. I know you're getting fucking yoked and shit, but
yeah, it's pretty wild. It
I got
really
a nice
is.
little tour of that gym, actually. His gym that he trains at.
What is it? What's it called?
Undisputed. or
Undisputed.
something. Ernie Reyes actually gave me a little tour of that gym.
Yeah,
That
Ernie
was cool.
Reyes.
Yeah.
Man,
Dude, my
surf-
Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon came full circle in that shit, dude. I was so pumped.
Surf Ninjas too.
He's in it.
Yeah, I know.
Fucking
He's
right, dude. And he plays Michael. I think he's Michelangelo in the first Teenage. He's in the suit.
He is.
He's in one of the suits.
He's also in. He
Part
plays
2.
Kano.
Yeah.
Kano.
Yeah.
Nuts. All right, dude. Wow, you have a fucking wild life.
Oh man, thanks, dude.
I feel like
I
we'd
just-
be able to talk 1,000 more hours. I do a ending segment.
Do it.
That I ask everyone. Are you a fan of The Office?
Yeah, I like The Office.
Okay, so they do a segment called Desert Island Questions. I give each of my guests 3 categories, and I give them 3 choices for each category to take with them on a desert island to listen to, watch, and read until they die a lonely, painful death. But so for the first category, I give you 3 movies, not movies necessarily, but 3 things to watch. So you could take whole series, movies, you could take TV shows, whatever you want. 3 choices.
Oh my god. So 3 TV shows.
Anything you want. Could be movies, could be anything.
Okay. First and foremost, easy. Sopranos.
Okay.
Period.
I have not watched it yet. I've been working up to watching it. There's just so much shit to watch.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah, I mean, definitely Sopranos. I mean, no doubt. It's kind of tough because when you answer this question too, in some respects, it's like there's certain movies that you used to binge. Like if you asked me in college, I'd be like Big Lebowski or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Or you know whatever. So just TV shows. I'm sorry, just TV shows.
Anything you want. It could
Yeah,
be any
so
platform of
definitely-
watching.
Definitely Sopranos. This sounds kind of weird. This is kind of a little funny, like maybe like 70s like NWA wrestling.
Oh yeah,
like
that would be
something
good.
like that. Even if it was just promos, even if it was just wrestling promos from the 70s of people doing their promos, I could fucking like even like wrestling shoot videos. I could listen to that shit forever.
Yeah, all the cuts.
Exactly. I listen
Yeah,
to that
yeah.
forever. And then probably like Yeah, from like movies. I mean, obviously people would say like anything Scorsese or some shit like that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's tough. It's so tough. I mean, I love
That's all right.
David
Take your
Lynch.
time.
It was like Twin Peaks, but yeah, shit like that.
Man, I'm currently watching Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah.
I'm one episode from the finale of the first season. I'm going to Seattle in October to. My wife is into Twin Peaks, so she booked some photographer. We're going to go to R&R diner and shit like that, and kind of just look all around and see all that shit. But it's going to be dope.
It's ironic that we're talking about. It's like it could be fights. It was like the same thing I was talking about WWE stuff.
Yeah.
It's like the shit that would end up occupying my time the most.
That's a really good answer. Every single I would take every single UFC fight. That I would love that.
That's
good.
enough for you know what I mean. That's like
and you got more than enough to watch.
Forever.
Man, that's a perfect answer. Man, I like that. Those
Thanks.
are three good choices
Thanks.
right there. Sopranos, all the fights.
Because the show is like you get invested in a show.
Yeah.
By the way, that the environment of the show is so authentic, and then the wrestling, even the shoot performance. The shoot videos
that covers all topics. That covers like
Right.
the serious, like the gangster, like theatrical type shit. Then you have the funny wrestling shit, and then you got dude.
Because visually is great.
Yeah.
But I'm a proponent. Risky Business is one of my favorite movies of all time. I'd probably
Yeah.
throw that in there.
Yeah.
Because Tangerine Dream they're like my shit. And I feel like I still say Risky Business is the best. I know Purple Rain's great and Stop Making Sense is great, but I still feel like Risky Business is the best soundtrack ever made. But especially because of the original score of what music does. It's nothing. If movies,
Didn't
entertainment,
have
it is
music.
fucking nothing without it. And the same
Yeah.
thing is for dialogue.
It's all the color. It's like the actors are just like the outline of the drawing,
Right.
and all the music is the
Dog,
color.
I don't need, to be honest. I love Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
I love Clerks. Technically, I could listen to those movies and they'll probably be just as entertaining.
Yeah. Well, those are good choices. All right, second category is things to do. You read it all?
Yeah.
So 3 books or 3 things to read, or
Oh, definitely one of the top ones up there is a book called This Wheel's on Fire by Levon Helm.
Okay.
He was the drummer for the band.
Okay.
He grew up in the Mississippi. He grew up in Arkansas in the Mississippi Delta. So he grew up going to see like fucking Elvis at the state fairs and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
The band, everybody else besides him is Canadian. Everybody thinks that they're notoriously American because of the Americana of the band.
Yeah.
Robbie Robertson kind of ended up fucking him over on the rest of the band on ownership of the material.
Ah.
But when he was 16, he went to go live with Levon, and he's like staying there because his dad, I think it was like his dad's grandfather, fought for the South. And,
Yeah.
that type of shit. But Levon's life because they were the backing band for Dylan when he went electric, and
Wow.
So it's his lifespan, his life circle within rock and roll. His perspective is very pure.
Yeah.
So even I love his perspective of Elvis, like because even back then, before he went to the army, all black artists would admit how great Elvis really was. You know, and he also blew the doors open for people. So it was nice, in that perspective. So that is definitely one for sure. You already heard me say it 1,000%. I'd put any Hunter S. Thompson book.
Okay.
Fear and Loathing. Or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And then I don't know. I think I love graphic novels. I love comic books a lot. A lot of independent comic books. So I probably put something on that list if it was Grant Morrison's probably my favorite comic book writer of all time. Grant Morrison's kind of Alan Moore is he did Watchmen.
Oh yeah.
Grant Morrison's like he Alan was kind of his like Grant's like his protege.
Okay, so it's kind of the same feel. I was
The
just
guy
gonna
Marco, who's the original Gordon Ramsay, and then Gordon. You know what I mean? He's like that. Basically, he had a comic book called The Invisibles that was actually the original idea for The Matrix. I think he was like in the early on stages with the Wachowski brothers working on it.
Really?
And then dropped out because Grant's a wild ass motherfucker. So I would absolutely, probably actually one of my favorites he ever wrote. He's done Superman and all these other things.
Yeah.
With a guy named Frank Whiteley, who's like one of the best artists, graphic novel and comic book artists. But he had one called We Three that I really loved. It was only the reason why I love Grant so much is because he does a limited run. So it'll just be like 6 issues for one or 12 for one, but he completes the story. So if he did one called We Three, which was only like 3 books.
That's awesome.
So something like that, yeah.
Yeah, those are good choices for sure.
Thanks.
Wow. Okay. Last category, 3 choices for things to listen to. Could be
This is the hardest, yeah.
music, could be podcast, could be anything you want.
So definitely when I was talking about wrestling, I will put on like shoot interviews for sure.
Okay.
I definitely throw that on there.
Yeah.
You know, I got to give a huge shout out to my brother on this one. What I was telling you is like for my bar mitzvah, man, my brother had nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He had
yeah.
nothing, you know, my brother's he's a wild ass motherfucker. And my mom was getting evicted when he was in middle school. He had to break into the crib and wrap himself in a fucking rug and sleep with no power on in the crib. And he's a true like lone wolf cub. You know what I mean? And for my bar mitzvah, he didn't have no money, but he gave me 3 cassette tapes and a warped ass "Wish You Were Here" T-shirt. But I remember he handed me Pink Floyd Animals. He's like, tonight when you go home, I want you, when you go to bed, shut the fucking lights off and put this tape on. And then he also eventually gave me Pink Floyd Metal as well.
Wow.
So I think for either one of those albums, like Shine On You Crazy Diamond on Wish You Were Here.
That's great.
Like anything in that respect, just because it has like a very
sentimental,
a very sentimental attachment to that. And I do love podcasts a lot. I'm very much, like when it comes to music, I think that's why like I love metal. I love, I think over the last like bunch of years, because we're in such an electronic age, in a digital age, it's like I think I found myself gravitating more towards, just any fucking live instrumentation.
Absolutely.
So, man, that third part of it, the third one's like probably, it'd be like pretty tough to really like figure out. But I'd probably say, maybe that Risky Business soundtrack, man.
There you go.
Love on a Rail Train by them. They were just able to encapsulate seriously of Tom Cruise's, because that whole idea too has been copied so many times.
Absolutely.
The director only directed 2 films. He like died shortly after, I think, his second film.
Wow.
But it's just what they're able to encapsulate with the music to images of like where his character's at in his life, and what we were fucking talking about trying to figure out, because he's in Future Enterprisers in the movie.
Yeah.
So initially they're trying to do this post-it maker, memo maker or whatever.
Yeah.
Because in the movie, he ends up pimping out these chicks and,
absolutely,
that whole thing. But the music to me in those moments of like, it's so crazy to me.
Paints the picture.
How that movie just how it feels that it's like I've been there listening to that soundtrack and the same moments emotionally and whatever in my life.
Yeah, music always takes you back.
I mean, there's nothing, dude. Music to me is, I'll tell one last story here that's hilarious, and in my family, because a lot of it, especially on my mom's side, that's what we have. Like, we're not religious on her side. It's like Thanksgiving's our holiday. We get up early. We'll get up at 6 a.m., start drinking and cooking and whatever.
Yeah.
But we're listening to music, and we're just very hypersensitive to music. I've always had, I'm one of those people, my brother and I are the same way. I could hear a half a BPM of a fucking song, and I
know what it
tell
is.
you what the song is. So my uncle came in from California. He took a generic Ambien by mistake, and he likes to drink a little bit. And my aunt also came in, his sister, and we met because we'd do these trips sometimes when I was living there. They come in, we'll all hang out and do. We went to Anthony Bourdain's first restaurant, food and stuff, and do all the steak tartare and bullshit. But he came in, and when I got in, my aunt's like, "Yo, I've never seen him like this before." And I go in, and he's basically assed the fuck out on the bed, you know what I mean? I'm like, Lee, what the fuck, man? So we just have him in there, and eventually we order some pizza. Next thing you know, me and my aunt are just in there with music on, just like drinking. I'm smoking weed, and we're just chilling, like partying. But the music, if I put on a song that my uncle in this fucking, he's like basically just laid perfectly, like back with his head back in this fucking ambient coma. Because what happened was, in between when he woke up and he's like, I don't know what happened. And he cracked a fucking bottle of wine. He drank 1 fucking glass of wine. I shit you not. Right after he's done with the glass, he was like, let's go downstairs and smoke a cigarette. By the time we got downstairs, he was like homeless drunkard shit-faced.
Oh my God.
So I had to take him back upstairs. So my aunt and I were partying, having a good time. Dude, if a song came on, like the night they drove Old Dixie down by the band, he would literally pop up, one eye cocked, and start air guitaring, and then like go back into the ambient coma and came back up. But I always thought that was the best way to describe him. Like, no matter how fucked up he is, it's like the love for music is so deep in his soul.
Comes out of him.
That it like comes out of him. Then if I give him a little weed, he'll try to wrestle me to the fucking ground.
Those are good choices.
Yeah.
Definitely good choices. Okay, second to last question is your death row meal. So you could have as much as you want from wherever you want, as much as you want to eat.
My death song, because I know that too.
We could do that too.
My death row meal. I mean, living in California, this sounds so fucking cheesy. It's kind of like the movie Sideways, where he has that 64 or whatever fucking bottle of wine, eating that hamburger and fries. That's what the fuck, going to one of, it's not Irv's Burgers, actually isn't there anymore, but just that more classic drive-through American because there's only a couple of things like food wise that are just inherently American,
Yeah.
just like that are us and that comfort food. We're like hot messes, you know what I mean? We got class, but we don't got class. So it's
Absolutely.
like I like that feeling of like having like a really fucking good, like not overly expensive like umami burger. I'm not saying that shit isn't good, but not that. I'm just saying a really good,
Just a well-made burger.
couple steps up from like an In-N-Out, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Which
just
In-N-Out is great, but their fries
Just
are
a good burger.
with like a dope ass bottle of red wine
Okay. That's a good choice. That's a real good choice.
and a fucking fat fucking something to smoke.
Okay.
Just
You can
throw
have that
that in.
too for death row.
Yeah, I'm allowed.
You probably won't get that in jail, but I'll give you it.
Slip me the edible.
Slip me the
Put it in
edible.
the French fries or some shit.
All right. Last question is: I ask everyone if you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh man, Jesus Christ!
I make these questions difficult for people, and I cut out any downtime, so feel free to think about it.
I mean, Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, yeah. Dennis
Wow,
Hopper.
that is such a choice.
I think he is probably one of
Dennis
if not
Hopper.
the top 3.
What
most
did it for you? Speed or True Romance?
Well, what I was about to say is I think he is like top 3 most influential, greatest maybe artists like America's ever produced.
He's a wild
He was
dude.
a director. He was a painter. He's a photographer. He's
Really?
an actor.
I didn't know any of
He
that.
directed Easy Rider. He fucking
Really?
Yeah. So it's like we're talking about somebody who had in my opinion, a profound
wow.
effect on popular culture. I'm just saying is like a multi-layered
That's a good choice.
onion of a fucking artist.
Wow, Dennis Hopper.
And yeah, I mean, throw in, him having his second wind of getting sober and doing, Blue Velvet and, I love True Romance and all this stuff. But yeah, as a
Yeah.
director, he's a movie called Out of the Blue that he directed in 1980. Nobody directs controlled chaos controlled insanity like he does. That is
Wow.
a fucking gift. There's a scene in the movie when he gets out of jail and he comes back to his like trailer to fucking meet everybody for the party. It's pure insanity, but there's a control. Like
What's it called?
Out of the Blue.
Out of the Blue.
He directed Colors. You know the movie Colors?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Mind you, to everybody's listen, he directed Colors a year before Boys in the Hood. A year before Boys in the Hood.
I didn't know that he was like a man of many hats like that.
And that's what I'm saying. Great, amazing photographer.
Wow.
So I just think,
Is he still alive?
No, he died.
Okay,
So
when
that's
was
why
that?
You said he died. It was a number of years ago. He had cancer, and he was somebody when I worked at the Chateau that I was like, I might have put Christopher Walken on that list at some point, but I had some funny stories with him.
Chris Walken.
Yeah, he yelled at me on the phone once. He goes, "This hotel sucks. I don't want to be treated differently." I go, "Whatever."
You're talking to my guy all wrong. I'll stab you in the face with a soldering
It was
iron.
like, I don't want to be treated differently. This hotel sucks.
Wild, dude. Wild.
But yeah, I would probably say Hopper for sure. And
That's
then,
a really good choice.
Can I say a second one
Absolutely.
who's definitely on the same level?
Absolutely.
And this will take people for a loop. Levon probably would have been on that list too, but man, Dimebag Darrell from Pantera, dog.
Man, that is a choice.
I don't give a fuck. That to me is like, I don't think there's nobody out there. Here's the deal. People that understand my choice right now, if they're listening to this, know what the fuck I'm
they
talking
know you're
about.
a real one.
I just would want one show, one night with the band for a show. Like one of those like 1992 fucking Vulgar Display of Power tour.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow.
like they to me, like that
That's a
would,
choice.
That would be like for just to like, again, same reason. Like I the way that I feel about artists, how just passionate I am about the people that are so pure. Do you know what I'm saying? That it's in them. It's so pure that they're. It's like Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yeah.
His purity and understanding of rock and roll was like. It just doesn't
he's a
exist
pillar.
anymore.
He's
Exactly.
a pillar.
Right, exactly. Like the things that are in Bob Dylan of the world, and even Keith Richards, and fucking like Lee Scratch Perry. These last like I always tell people, dog, I don't want to listen to the leaves. I want to listen to the seed. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I want the
Jeez.
roots. I don't. I want to.
That's heavy right
I say
there.
staying closer to that is like the more important thing. So for me, Dimebag, just for how much I love that band, and
That's a really good choice.
that's my answer.
All right, dude. I appreciate you fucking coming.
Yeah, man.
Take this time and promote whatever you want to promote.
Nah, I don't know. Hopefully, look out for Comic Routines. I hope it comes soon. I'm going to get it out really soon. I'm Sussbomb, SUSSBOMB on Instagram. Hit me up. Right now I'm just trying to look to like work with people. I feel like I
Creatives.
can bring some shit to the table and try to.
Absolutely, dude.
Like I just told you about Rick. I feel like I'm good. Even shit with Malcolm and
make some shit happen.
Dude, he gave me the biggest compliment ever, man. And I had actually thought about it before, and I didn't want to say it. Plus, I used to start open mic saying I'm the hipster Neil Brennan, because I kind of look like him a little bit. And
now that you say that, you do got a resemblance.
I get it.
For
People
sure.
always say that about me, but I even thought about with Malcolm because we did have that. Because I hate saying this because a lot of white dudes are like, I'm not your average white dude, but like I really am not. Especially because here's the thing, I don't do it on how I'm dressed. I dress how I am.
Yeah,
I'm not faking. I'm just saying who I am on the inside. But
you're cultured.
I'm cultured of just experienced in life. And he called me. He was like, man, it's kind of like I'm Chappelle and you're Neil Brennan. You know what I mean? And said that. And
that's
I was
awesome,
like,
dude.
But I feel like in terms of like. Maybe I have a thing with like helping nurture talent and shit like that. I had a young DP I had to deal with.
You gravitate towards
and I feel like
creatives.
Yeah, and look, I know what it is to be on camera. I know what it is to be off camera. I know what it is to have to write shit.
You offer a lot. Like experience is the best teacher.
No doubt.
You know what it is? Definitely is.
So just holler at your boy. That's
I'll link your shit below. Definitely get in contact with Dustin. I mean, you could tell from this podcast that he's a wild dude.
It feels like that's. And I'm sure you could probably tell I felt like an asshole saying it, but it's like we didn't even talk about Florida. There's just like so much crazy shit.
We'll get you back on here for sure.
Can you imagine going? I feel bad for every girl that I've ever been on a date with in my life.
I mean, I couldn't imagine it, dude.
Yeah, no. They like it at first, but
they like
Papa
it at first.
Was a rolling stone.
Appreciate everyone listening as usual. Another great episode, unreal. I appreciate everyone. Giving all the rates and reviews. If you got some time, go on there, rate and review the podcast. I would love that. I got some new shirts coming out very, very soon. The website's going to be dropping very, very soon. Follow me on Instagram at I'll Call You Right Back. I'll Call You Right Back everywhere else across the boards. Send me an email with some people you'd like me to have on here at I'll Call You Right Back at gmail.com. And just give me some feedback. Let me know what you like, what you dislike, and call me a piece of shit if you want. But I do appreciate it, and I'll call you right back.